Tonight, we're talking about Snowfall, the crime drama series set in the crack epidemic of the early 1980s in Southside LA. Then we're reviewing Jordan Peele's new film, Nope, and discussing the various themes that I picked up from it in my viewing, as well as themes across all of Black trauma in horror movies in general. And finally, we're talking about all that has happened so far in Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as well as what's to come in Phase 5. This is the San Diego Comic-Con special edition of Did Y'all See That? Okay. Hello. Sorry about that. I was like fucking AFK for a sec. I was trying to listen to the audio. Hello. Welcome everybody to Did Y'all See That? I am your host, Ngozi Mai, the Njengu VTuber. Thank you all for tuning in to this special episode celebrating the San Diego Comic-Con that just happened last week. I missed it this year, so I didn't go, but I usually do go. Before the pandemic, ever since 2016, I would go every year, and I would camp out Hall H to see all the bombshell announcements, and boy, we were not disappointed this year. We have a lot to get through tonight, but first, the rundown. In this special episode, we'll be having two one-hour segments of pop your culture, so no guests tonight. But Talk Gozy to Me will be back at next month's episode. But for tonight, we're just gonna fucking nerd out, guys. We're gonna just nerd out. Feel free to comment away throughout the show. I cannot promise that I'll be reading chat too closely throughout the show, but I will try. There will be spoilers, folks, during the pop your culture part. It's a part of the show, especially in the second half, because we're going to be talking a lot about a lot of different Black horror movies that are out there. I'm going in depth in a lot of those plots, as well as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So if you see this image on your screen, then please assume that we might be talking about something that you could get spoiled for. So I recommend muting the stream by default and shooting a message in the chat to see what we're talking about before unmuting. And then when the image goes away, then you're safe to unmute. So with all of that out of the way, folks, let's get started with our first segment of Pop Your Culture. All you bubs pop your culture like this. Tell me about it, goes you work that shit. All you bubs pop your culture like this. Tell me about it, goes you work that shit. Alrighty, so with our first segment of Pop Your Culture, where we talk all things pop culture, we're gonna go ahead and start off with In Case You Missed It, our segment detailing the spark notes of notable pop culture happenings from the last month. So let's get into it. Trigun Stampede is coming in 2023. This is going to be a new anime adaptation of this manga. This anime was actually a thing back in the 90s. Like this was running as an anime in the 90s. Then it had a movie in 2010. But yeah, this is the first anime adaptation that we've had since the 2010 movie. So it's set on a fictional planet known as No Man's Land, and the plot follows Vash the Stampede, a famous gunman who is constantly fighting bounty hunters seeking to obtain the immense bounty on his head. I did not watch the original series, but I saw this trailer and it looked good. I know a lot of people like to knock the whole CGI anime craze that's happening these days, but I think if it can be done well, go for it. And it looked good. So, and again, it is Netflix. Netflix is kind of swing and a miss sometimes. I'm going to watch it. We'll see. I'll give it a fair shake. The Lo-Fi Girls Chill Hop Study Music stream finally ended this last month after 2 straight years of streaming due to a fraudulent copyright strike from a Malaysian record label called FMC Music. Now, the issue was finally resolved by YouTube, thankfully, and the new stream began a couple of weeks ago. So check it out. It's up right now. But yeah, apparently that record label FMC is claiming that someone hacked them and is making these fraudulent DMCA strikes on random YouTube channels on their behalf. So honestly, the whole how easy it is for people to make fraudulent claims and get people taken down on YouTube. I've been seeing a lot of it in the last couple of months or so, and it really does bother me. So I hope that YouTube can fix their processes and make it so that folks don't get become victim to this, because it really sucks. Ooh, superhero dystopian satire drama The Boys is getting a spin-off, y'all. And it is going to be set in an American university for superheroes that is going to be run by Vought International. The show is going to be called Gen V, and it's going to probably be super fucked up, because if not more so than the Parent series. And the Parent series is pretty fucked up. Basically, it's going to be a bunch of megalomaniac narcissists with hormones of late teenagers in a college setting with drugs, alcohol, partying, and casual sex, some of which not consensual. So, by the way, they all have superpowers. Yeah. So what can possibly go wrong? This is going to be a fucking mess. We'll see. We'll see how this one goes. Ooh, Stray came out this month, and it was just a delight. If you guys haven't played it yet, it is a new video game, a kind of 3D platformer video game where you get to be a cat and you get to meow and you get to jump and you get to nuzzle on things and you get to scratch carpets and you get to like step in paint and track the paint everywhere. It's adorable. I didn't actually finish the game because I found out from a friend that it's actually a pretty short campaign. So you want to take your time with this. There's a lot to explore. I was kind of zooming through it because I was thinking, oh, this is going to be like a 12-hour campaign. Nope, it's like a couple hours. So make sure you take your time with it. It's a good time. You pick it up. I think it's $30. It's a little bit on the pricey side for such a short campaign, but it is just a delight. They/Them is an upcoming slasher flick, horror slasher flick that is set in a gay conversion camp where a serial killer is on the loose. And we follow a group of LGBTQ plus teenagers that are trying to fight to survive. So I don't know. I was pretty skeptical when filmmakers go this far out of their way to make a pun. It makes me think like, okay, maybe they don't have much of a movie to go on. Like, I feel like they were in the fucking the writer's room and they were just like, yo, guys, I got it. They/them, and it's a serial killer on the loose that is slashing them, but also they and them are the pronouns for non-binary. Oh, like I feel like that's what they did, and then they just like put a plot on top of that. So I'll watch it, but I'm a little skeptical. Like I love representation, and I'm gonna watch it anyway just for the culture. But I'm skeptical already because like if you're gonna go out that far out of your way for a damn pun, it does not bode well. Oh my goodness, Rick and Morty season 6 is coming out on September 4th. This was super shocking. I actually just found out about this today. Like literally like 30 minutes ago, I found out about this shit. Last we saw our dynamic duo here. Rick's whole ass backstory was revealed, which finally canonicized him as the Rickest Rick, because it was revealed that he is the Rick that started the Citadel of Ricks, and that's the reason why he's like the most wanted Rick in the universe, because they want him back because they are incompetent as Ricks, and he's the Rickest Rick. We also saw President Morty, which was a long overarching arc for that really smart Morty over the past few seasons. We found President Morty escape what we came to know as the central finite curve, which was a subspace of the multiverse where there only exists universes where Rick is the smartest man alive. So that President Morty knew that, and he wanted to exit that central finite curve so he could kind of get away from Ricks, because Ricks are kind of the worst. Our set here, our C-137, Rick and Morty, they got away. They escaped the Citadel, and the Citadel perished in a black hole. And the fate of President Morty is unknown. So that is where we left off. We have season 6 coming out in September. Exciting stuff. I hope that it doesn't jump the shark anymore, because quite frankly, the giant incest baby was about my limit. So they better not go any further left than that. Oh my goodness, the Destiny 2 showcase is coming up. So basically every now and then Bungie puts out a showcase that details kind of the future of Destiny. And there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up soon. Like a few months ago, we found the release of the Witch Queen expansion that chronicled Savathun being reborn as a guardian. you know, and that whole thing, and figuring out how that whole mystery, and we found out it was a whole ass conspiracy by her to become a guardian and harness the light for herself, but also have her memories. If you don't know, if you become a guardian in this universe, you are basically a dead person that gets brought back to life, and you have no memory of your past life. Whereas Savathun plotted to get her memories back, and we kind of indirectly helped her do that. So we don't really know what happened after that. So the next expansion coming out is Lightfall. That's supposed to come out later this year. So we're gonna get a big reveal of that. We've got a new subclass is gonna get revealed. I think Stasis is the last one we got added. Darkness is also one that we kind of have been whispering about since pretty much since launch, since 2014 when the first game launched. Season 18 is going to be revealed. With that, they're bringing back one of two raids from Destiny 1, Kingsfall or Wrath of the Machine. People really think it's going to be Kingsfall just because of the whole Savathun arc that we just saw. And I hope it is, because I fucking love that raid. Both of those raids rock, but Kingsfall, I fucking ran that raid about like 300 times, bro. Like, it is not even funny. Like, oh my god, I'm really about to be I'm about to be a Destiny streamer if they bring Kingsfall back. We're just gonna be doing raids, every raid, right, day after day after day, doing raids. So I'm excited about this. This is August 23rd. I'm excited to see what they show us. Oh my goodness. We have House of Dragons. We have a Game of Thrones spinoff, y'all. And oh God, and I really hope that the funk of Game of Thrones, the ending of Game of Thrones, has wiped off enough so that we can give this a fair chance. Because honestly, it looks pretty fucking good. I saw the trailer. It's basically set 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones. It's a total prequel, and it's chronicling the beginning of the end of the House Targaryen. Basically, there's like a giant war of succession between the king's daughter Rhaenyra and her uncle Daemon, who's the king's brother. Daemon thinks, oh, I should get the throne when you die, and Rhaenyra is just like, nah, bitch, I'm his firstborn. I should get the throne. And he's just like, nah, bitch, you're a woman, and all that shit. So like, basically, that's what it's gonna be another war. It's gonna be another war. It looks good. The cast looks diverse as hell in comparison to what it used to be. Because let's face it, guys, Game of Thrones was pretty white. So the fact that we're getting some more folks in is a real breath of fresh air, in my opinion. So I'm excited to see it. I'll give it a chance. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And finally, Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. So I watched the Lord of the Rings movies years ago, and I loved them, but I wasn't really like a super stan about them, you know? Like, I feel like a lot of my friends like fucking love this series, and I loved it visually. I'm more, what I loved about it was the visual effects aspect, and how like that kind of revolutionized visual effects in a lot of ways. So that's the nerdiness that I took out of it. And this looks pretty fucking good too. I looked at this trailer, and oh my god, like they upgraded on these visuals. They're pretty much like everything Peter Jackson could have done with the technology of today. It's also a prequel series. It's set thousands of years before the events of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. It's chronicling the forging of the Rings of Power, the rise of the Dark Lord Sauron, the fall of the island kingdom Numenor, the last alliance between elves and man. So like, this is gonna be a really cool. Going this far back this is just a kind of an uncharted area of the Lord of the Rings lore that we haven't really seen on screen yet. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. And that, folks, was In Case You Missed It. Let's move on to our next topic tonight. We need to talk. In this segment, we look closer at something that was once really, really good and maybe kind of went awry at some point later on. And then we speculate on its future. And this month, we're talking about Snowfall. This show is really good for about the first 4 seasons. I think they're on season 6 right now. I binged this whole ass thing in about 2 months. And it was really good. It's basically kind of like, if you've ever seen Power, it's like a more serious Power. It's like if Power had good acting and good writing, mostly. Toward the last 2 seasons really start veering toward Power's writing, but I mean, the first 4 seasons were masterful. This show is set in the 1980s and chronicles the start of the crack cocaine epidemic in the United States, as well as the CIA's involvement of that, particularly in Southside LA, and the effect on the Black community after. But yeah, so The what's really cool about this, so when you see like these TV shows that are about like drugs and drug dealing, like even The Wire. Actually, no, The Wire is a bad example because The Wire did a really good job of it. Let's stick with Power. Power like to show you the glamorous side, and they kind of only showed you the glamorous side and like the gang side and the murder side. They didn't really show you the effect on the people, the effect on the community. And I think that's part of the way Snowfall gives you such a raw view in the actual reality that happens when the crack epidemic hits the Black community. And I mean hits it. It's something I'd never seen before. It was really raw and it was really visceral, and it really kind of like ties into one of our topics later tonight. Like it's Black trauma. This is part of our history. You know, I saw a great quote saying that Black history is Black horror in a lot of ways, and this is part of that. You know, they really showed you what it looked like. There's actually a storyline where there's a young girl who's about to go to Spelman University. She's a Black girl. Her dad her dad's a single dad. He's in the military, not in the military. He's a cop. So she gets shit about that. Like she gets shit on because her dad's a cop. Like, yo, you got one time. But she's on her way, and literally like weeks before she was about to leave to Spelman, she tries crack one time. She tries it. And the way that crack is that it's a very, very short, very intense high, and it's extremely addicting. And she is hooked on crack just like that. And what happens is when she tries it, she has to get it again. So she like spends all her money getting it. Now she's out of money. What she got to do now? Oh, now she starts selling her belongings. Now she's out of belongings. What she gonna do now? Now she's sneaking out the house and trying to find more crack, trying to like sell her body to get more crack. Like it's really fucked up, and her whole life kind of gets ruined just like that, you know. And it was just so profound watching someone that really had a bright future, her future just get totally ruined because she was at a party once and someone said, "Hey, you want to try this?" She's like, "Yeah, I want to have fun." She didn't even realize it was going to ruin her life. That's what this show does. That's one story. The show really shows in a really raw way. It shows the glamorous part. It shows the money. It shows the cars. It shows the gang shit. But it also shows the reality. And I think that in a nutshell is why I love this show so much. Let's talk about some characters. We've got 3 major characters in this show that are considered the main characters. This first character's name is Franklin Saint, which his last name is Saint. I'm sure that's like symbolism because he's like very much not a saint. But basically this guy is kind of like that girl. He was supposed to be on the straight and narrow. He's smart. He had an opportunity to leave the hood and go to a better school, like with the in the nice neighborhood, and go to a nice college. I think he actually even did go to college. He did go to college a little bit, but when he got there, he experienced racism. You know, there was an issue, like in this very specific instance. There was an issue where the lady that filled out his housing paperwork fucked up his income and made it seem like his family's income was higher than it was. And because of that, he lost his scholarship. And when they called him in the office, they said, "Okay, you lost your scholarship. You have to vacate the premises in 3 days." And he's just like, "But that was just a mistake." And like, if anybody else, if it was a white kid, they would have been like, "Oh yeah, okay, it's just a mistake. Let's just fix the mistake." But no, because he's a Black kid with an accent, like, because he's from Southside LA, so he's got an accent. They were prejudiced to him, and they didn't treat him with grace, and they expelled him, and that kind of changed him. It kind of convinced him that world ain't for him. That if he's gonna get control over his life and his future, he needs to do it on his own terms. And that's kind of where his story starts, where he's trying to look for his peace. You know, he's trying to see, he believes that he is capable. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. He feels capable of anything. And you root for him too. You really fucking do. Even though you know that he's doing bad, like he starts like dealing drugs. He hooks up with this arms dealer that starts feeding him keys of cocaine. He's trying to sell the cocaine. He goes up to San Francisco and he learns about crack. So then he devised a plan to bring crack down, because all he saw when he saw that man, and when he was up in San Francisco and that man was teaching him how to make crack, all he saw was dollar signs. All this was he saw the high that happened. He saw that it fucking like boils your brain and makes it so that you can't think anymore. He saw the effects that it could have on his community. He didn't fucking care. He didn't fucking care, because all he saw was his peace. That's my future. That's how I secure my future on my terms. That's what he saw. And it's crazy because you really root for him. I would say that like a recurring theme with most of these characters, you will stop rooting for them because they're not good people. They're not good people. It happens later than you think it would. Despite all of the shitty stuff they're doing, they're getting people killed, they're ruining lives, they're ruining their community, they're doing all this shit, you're still kind of rooting for them. I didn't really stop rooting for Franklin until like season 6. And that's kind of fucked up. I saw him fucking shoot a dude in the head, point blank, heartlessly, and I'm still fucking rooting for Franklin. How? Make it make sense. I don't even know. So Franklin basically takes his place as the kingpin of this empire he's building, and the tip top of this empire he calls the family. You got Franklin the kingpin. You got his best childhood friend Leon the enforcer. You have his aunt Louie, who is the brains, and you have his uncle Jerome, who is Louis' husband, who is the experience. Jerome was the one that kind of introduced him to the game in the first place, because Jerome had him selling weed on the corner. So he was like kind of getting to know. So he's got a very strong sense of loyalty. Like, this is his family. And he tells himself, we're going to come back to this. He tells himself that everything he's doing for his family. We're going to find out a little later that's not totally true. His character arc is compelling. He wants to play this dangerous game. And at the beginning of that arc, he doesn't want to get his hands dirty. He believes he can do it. He can get everything he wants without getting his hands dirty. And the layers you peel back from Franklin as the show goes on, it is basically him. It shows more and more what he's willing to do to get what he wants. And the first time he's forced to get his hands dirty is when he accidentally murders his best friend, his other childhood best friend, Kevin, because Kevin betrayed the family by selling the crack cocaine recipe to a competitor. And he was threatening, at least Franklin felt that Kevin was threatening his way of life. And this is a recurring theme. Whenever Franklin feels like someone's threatening his way of life, his quote, family, that is when he gets his hands dirty, and he murdered his best friend for it. Now, he's actually sent to prison for that. They got him for that. There was a witness, and they got him for that, and he's actually forced to harden. That was one of the better episodes in the series. He only spent one episode in prison, but it was brutal. Honestly, he could have spent longer. It was a little rushed to me, but the effect was apparent because he got jumped on his first day. They stole his shoes. Some dude stole his shoes, you know. The people in prison pretty much saw him, and they saw him as easy meat. So they fucking beat on him. They beat him up. They robbed him. They threatened his life. Every night they would go jump him, and it basically hardened him, because basically he'll when he would look himself in the mirror and he sees his face all swollen, you see a switch click in his brain. This shit ain't ever gonna happen to me again. You see it happen, and it's just good acting. It really is just good acting. And what does he do? He went back to that other dude. He took his fucking shoes back. He beat the fuck out of that guy. He took his shoes back. He went to the guys that were fucking, that were trying to jump him every night, and he threatened their families. He said, I know where your family lives outside these walls. You come at me again, your family's gonna go. Like, he basically, like I said, an onion, a piece of him got peeled away, and he became more of what he's meant to be. So, kind of more and more ruthless. And by the end of the series, he's pretty fucking ruthless. Somebody even asks him, they say, Franklin, you know that crack cocaine is destroying your community. It's destroying lives. They even drive him around to the crack houses to show him what it's doing. And they ask him, how do you sleep at night? And he looks at the camera and he goes, like a baby. It's just good acting. That's Franklin, y'all. Let's talk about Teddy. Teddy is a CIA agent who has lost all credibility from the agency and is desperately trying to be useful. He's like at the end of his career. He's burned all of his bridges, and he's just trying so hard to be useful because that's kind of core to his character. He gets off by being needed, by being in control, by being essential. That's what gets this character off. He finds an opportunity to overtake an operation with the CIA, which the CIA is funneling cocaine into the U.S. to fund the Contras war against the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. Look up the Iran-Contra affair. That's or Iran-Contra something. Yeah, I know. Look it up. Look it up. That's the thing. This happened for real. He is so convinced that what he is doing, he's running a fucking cocaine cartel. He is funneling cocaine, and he knowingly, not even that is he funneling cocaine into the US, he is knowingly funneling it directly into the Black community, destroying the Black community. And he's doing it in his brain. He's telling himself it's for a righteous cause. He's doing this so that the Nicaraguans can have their right to revolution. That's bullshit. He is doing it because he gets off on the power, on the control, on feeling essential. He doesn't give a fuck about the cause. Because quite frankly, later in the series, by the way, I should have the fucking spoiler alert on. I'm just like talking about the whole goddamn show. I'm sorry about that. I should have the spoiler on. But yeah, no, he fucking, later in the series, the Nicaraguans, like, at least the group that he was like directly helping, they all die. They're all killed because he was a fuck up on his end, made it so that the weapons and money were late and they didn't get to them in time, and they all fucking died, and it was his fault. And he acted like he was sad about it, but what did he do? He continued the cartel. He continued the cartel like it was nothing, because it was never about the cause. Self-righteousness is another theme that we're going to come back to. He works with Franklin as his direct supplier throughout the series. There is a clearly racially charged power dynamic between these two toward the end of the series. And I actually found that unnecessary because, quite frankly, in the first 4 or so seasons, we saw them as kind of a partnership. Like, it was all business, but there was respect there. And there was like a turning point later in the series that I'm still unsure when or why it even happened. But there was a turning point where Teddy became something else. Like he made one comment that stuck with me. I'm like, why the fuck did they put this in the show? Where he was just like, don't you know that because all this cocaine and drugs are funneling into the Black community, nobody cares about that? Like, he said something about that, something like that. And I'm like, the fuck? I don't think Teddy in season 1 would have said that. I don't know why they went in that direction for this character, but they did. And that's kind of part of the reason why I think the show kind of like went on a kind of a downhill spiral from season 5 onward. It kind of started losing its strength a little bit because we found respect between these two when they found respect in each other. And when that was gone, I mean, we kind of hate the guy now. Now he's kind of like a lightweight racist. Like, he was always a fucking self-righteous tool who got off on power, but now he's a little racist too. Like, was that necessary? I don't know. Oh God, any bit of likability is just gone now. So there's another bit of control. Another reason why he really gets off in control. There's a point like in the last season, and this season 6. I don't think that's the last season. I think that's gonna be. I think there's gonna be at least one more season. But basically, he uses his CIA connection to steal every cent from Franklin that Franklin ever made in his empire, which was around $17 million. Like, the empire had been around for a while. He made all of that money, and Teddy stole all of it. Why? Because he could. Because Franklin said he wanted to get out of the game, and Teddy wanted to control him, so he took all of his money to assert dominance over Franklin. There's that charged power dynamic between them, So yeah. Anyway, that's Teddy. Let's talk about Gustavo and Lucia. So Gustavo on the right here is a luchador wrestler named El Oso. He's broke and he's stuck working for others. That's kind of his introduction. Then you've got Lucia here, who is the daughter of a marijuana drug kingpin. Like, her dad is like the kingpin of a marijuana cartel. She is ambitious. Ambition, that's another theme that's going to keep coming back. She is an ambitious woman. She and her cousin Pedro plot to steal money from Pedro's father to start their own cocaine cartel without his knowledge. They enlist Gustavo here to help as their muscle, and Lucia and Gustavo begin an affair, which wasn't intentional, but they just did. They just started fucking, and it was cute. So Gustavo sets up a connect between his brother's gang and this new cartel, this new burgeoning cartel. Pedro is dangerously addicted to cocaine and is very, very suspicious of Gustavo and Lucia, thinking that they're going to cut him out. So he dimes them out to his father. Pedro's father cuts Gustavo out. He cuts Gustavo out and his brother's gang out. And he wants to kill Gustavo. Like, he wants Gustavo gone, right? And then he puts Lucia on the back burner. Lucia is an ambitious woman. When you're an ambitious woman and somebody takes your power away from you, you ain't so happy about that. So Lucia plots with Gustavo and his brother's gang to murder Pedro's father and his goons, and they succeed. Pedro is pissed because his dad just died, right? And he plots with the DEA to fuck over Lucia and Gustavo. Lucio murders Pedro and is forced to go on the run as the DEA arrests Gustavo. This all happens in like the first 2 seasons. We never see Lucia again. And that's a shame because I really liked Lucia. I love seeing ambitious women be ambitious unapologetically. You know? When women are ambitious, we're seen as bitches. Oh, she's a bitch. She's too aggressive. Not assertive, aggressive. Lucia don't give a fuck what they say because she got the clout to back it up. I really respected that character, and I was really sad to see her go. I think the reason why her character exited the show is because the actor playing her had some substance abuse issues, and it's a real shame because I really liked her. Gustavo, in the remainder of the series, enters a business partnership with Teddy and becomes Teddy's enforcer. So that's kind of Gustavo and Lucia here. Let's talk about some themes. The biggest theme in this show is ambition, and how it leads to downfall. We see for Franklin, he sees the effects of crack kind of quickly on his community. After it reaches the streets of LA, all he sees are dollar signs. All he sees is opportunity, you know? And his money, his goal, he doesn't even really want to keep it in LA. He wants to expand. You know, his mind, he's thinking, okay, this recipe for crack is gonna get out eventually. How we're gonna make our footprint in this is we're gonna spread it across the country. We're gonna put it in St. Louis, in Detroit, in New York, in fucking Atlanta. We're gonna bet all over it. Like his whole thing is ambition and how far he can push it. He starts investing into real estate, which is sketchy. Like, somebody that came from nothing and suddenly has millions of dollars investing in real estate, sketchy. But he becomes more and more reckless. He becomes more and more reckless as the show goes on when it comes to ambition, because he feels like no one can touch him. You know, he feels like he's royalty. He can do whatever the fuck he wants because he has money. We find later it's not true, because as I mentioned, Teddy takes all his money, and we see Franklin get desperate. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Teddy, his ambition, he gets off on being, like I said, being essential. His ability to run a cartel, he's good at it. It's something he's good at doing. And he tells him, even though it's bad, it's not good what he's doing, he tells himself he's doing it for the right thing. He actually even enlists his brother because he had a pilot early on in the series. He had to murder the pilot because the pilot ended up being a serial killer. Side plot. Unimportant. And so then he needed another pilot to fly him down to Mexico to go get all the cocaine. He enlisted the help of his real life brother, which was already stupid, to fly the plane, and it was supposed to be temporary. He was gonna find another pilot. But he got used to, he kind of used the bonding he had with his brother. Him and his brother are estranged. They're estranged. His brother is a Vietnam vet, and he's kind of shell-shocked, and he's kind of, and Teddy he never wanted to be there for his brother, So they became estranged. So when Teddy comes out of nowhere and say, "Hey, you want to help me fly some cocaine across the border?" His brother just wants to, bond with him, and Teddy used that. Teddy used that to manipulate his brother into doing something, into giving him what he wanted so that he could stay in the game longer. After a fuck up on Teddy's part and a little bit into the series, his brother's taken hostage by two insane cartel leaders, and he's force fed cocaine for days. Unsafe amounts of cocaine forced down his mouth and his throat for days. He got out of that eventually. Teddy fixed the fuck up, but it caused irreparable harm to his brother, and caused long-term heart issues, and it actually took his life. He died of a premature heart attack at like 38 because of it. And honestly, and that was totally Teddy's fault. And I think that I was mentioning before that Teddy had kind of a turning point in the series where he kind of became more than just a bad person, and that might have been it. That might have been it. When his brother died and it was his fucking fault, I think he accepted that he's a shit person, and he accepted that his ambition is the only thing that needs to drive him. So that's Teddy. As for Gustavo, it's mostly Lucia's ambition was clearer than Gustavo's ambition. Lucia was very clearly, I want to make a name for myself in this cartel business. And it got her whole family killed, and she got sent on the run. Gustavo's ambition is more in, he wants to find her. He spends a lot of the series trying to find her, eventually does, and he accepts that she doesn't want to be found. But then his ambition becomes wanting to establish a comfortable life for his family, for his brother and his brother's kids and whatnot. Unfortunately, Gustavo, and as a result, he's like in this tight partnership with Teddy. They're intimidating federales in Mexico and stuff, and that kind of ambition, that kind of overconfidence, actually gets Gustavo's brother and sister-in-law killed in retaliation by the Mexican police. So Gustavo, I would say, is lesser of a megalomaniac type character compared to Teddy and Franklin. I would say that Gustavo is like kind of like more of the heart. He's more of the sympathy. I don't think there really ever is a moment throughout the show where you dislike Gustavo, but there are lots of moments where you dislike Teddy and Franklin. Let's talk about loyalty. Loyalty is Franklin's highest tier of trust. When members of his family, of the quote, the family, want to go their own way, or they just want to do something that's opposite of what Franklin wants, Franklin sees it as a personal fucking insult. He sees it as a personal insult. He manipulates his family emotionally, as well as out of fear, to coerce them to stay with him. He'll tear them down, say, "You'll never be anything without me. You're going to let down your family." He'll use every fucking card in the book. And the only character that doesn't buy it is Louis. I'm kind of focusing on these three characters on purpose, folks, because I would love for you to actually watch the show. I'm telling you a lot of these three characters, but there's a whole ensemble of characters in this show that are amazing, and you should watch them just for them, if anything. But it's still nice to think about these themes when you're watching it, I'm a very thematic person, noticing overarching themes in the things that I watch, and loyalty is a really big one here. Teddy's sense of loyalty lies within the CIA, and he is prepared to blow up Franklin's whole life, the whole Nicaraguan revolution, the whole cartel operation. He will blow it up on a dime if it means that it'll get him clout within the CIA. Because especially towards the end of the series, when he feels like, when he's accepted he's a shit person, he's totally abandoned anything else in his life. His only value that he sees in himself is with the CIA, So by the end of the series, where we're at right now, like the CIA, that's his only loyalty is getting clout in the CIA, is being needed, is being essential. Another theme is self-righteousness. For Franklin, he feels that he's entitled to the power that he's amassed and this wealth that he's amassed. He's earned it. It's his. Even when he steals it from someone else, it's his, it's mine. He doesn't feel bad about destroying his community with this epidemic because he believes he's doing right by his family, which in reality, he's doing right by himself. He doesn't give a fuck about his family. Later in the series, he gets somebody pregnant. He has a woman named Veronique. He's in love with her. She's pregnant. and he constantly puts her in harm's way for the sake of his business. Constantly. Like there's scenes where she's getting shot at by it with a fucking drive-by. You know, if he really cared about his family, why would he put her in that situation? He doesn't fucking care about his family. He cares about his coin. He cares about his bag. That's it. That's it. Teddy preaches about, I don't know. His Teddy's self-righteousness. Teddy's self-righteousness is around him preaching about fighting the good fight. You know, he feels that he is doing this horrible thing in service to the greater good, in service to his country. And he says it so much throughout the show that it feels like he's trying to convince himself. And it's a lot. He's very preachy about it. So it's like he's trying to convince himself that that's the reason why he's doing this. Self-preservation is the last theme. And this is basically something you see in every single character in this show. Every single character in this show is inherently selfish. And maybe that is a commentary on human nature itself, that we're all inherently selfish, but that's something that's very prevalent in this show. And we see it very, very clearly with Franklin. When he loses his money, he becomes extremely desperate. He starts turning against that family. You know, that family that he like to say is the reason why he's doing all of this? He turns against them. He pulls a gun on his Aunt Louie and threatens her if she doesn't give him money. You know, like he fucking screams at his girlfriend, his pregnant girlfriend, like scaring her. Like you see the real Franklin. Teddy. Oh my gosh. So Teddy, his self-preservation comes in the form of the way the way he changes later in the show, when he kind of drops any pretense of being a decent human being. There's a moment where he's meeting with Franklin at a drop spot, and a drive-by comes and starts shooting up the place. Teddy's there with Gustavo. Gustavo's his man. Gustavo is his enforcer. That's his fucking partner. Teddy leaves his ass. He leaves Gustavo to fend for himself. And Gustavo doesn't forget that, by the way. Gustavo does not forget that happened. Teddy, it's all about self-preservation with Teddy. All in all, this show is really well done. The characters are characters that you should not like, and I think you don't like them, but you respect them and you root for them to a certain extent. There is a turning point in the show where each of these characters, you just kind of hate them. You kind of hate them, you know, but you keep watching anyway because you want to see where it ends up. So I hope that this show ends in a place that satisfies us as viewers. Clearly, we don't actually want Franklin to like come out on top here, given the fact that he like kind of single-handedly destroyed the Black community. We certainly don't want Teddy to come out on top because he's just like everything wrong with like the government and white America. We don't want any of that. So I'm very curious to see how they end the show. I don't know how many seasons are left. I hope not too many because it's kind of getting a little shark jumpy, but that is Snowfall. Hope you guys give it a look. And that's We Need to Talk. Let's move on to Gozy Stands. In this segment, I will talk about something that I watched this month that I fucking loved. The fattest of spoiler alerts, y'all. We are talking about Nope. If you have not seen Nope, mute this girl right now. This movie is about two siblings who run a California horse ranch and discover something amazing and sinister in the skies above, while the owner of an adjacent theme park tries to profit from the same mysterious otherworldly phenomenon. This is a classic creature feature, folks. I was very shocked to see that. I really thought that it was going to be like Martians and shit, but lo and behold, it was just a straight up monster. It's a monster movie. It was a really well done movie. Let's talk about the filmmaking a little bit. Let's start with the synopsis. So basically, this UFO is abducting their horses. There's these two siblings, OJ and Emerald. OJ and Emerald own this horse ranch after their father was mysteriously killed a few months ago, and the horses are getting abducted. They realize there is a mysterious UFO that is sucking up their horses, and they're trying to get it on camera because they want to get famous. I'm not kidding. That is the fucking premise. They're just like, yo, if we fucking get this shit on camera, a clear picture of a UFO, we are gonna get so much money. And that's like the whole ass plot. Like, it is so simple and it's so like, I don't know, it's just such a simple plot, but like it was really well executed because we're sitting here feeling all of this danger, all of these dangerous situations they're putting themselves in. And you have to keep reminding yourself they're choosing this. They're choosing to do this. They don't need to do this. They're fucking putting their lives at risk for what? For money? For fame? Like it's amazing. And that's like kind of the point. Like that's probably the most glaring theme that Jordan Peele wanted you to get out of this, is that it's a spectacle about spectacles. You know, it's the commentary is on human nature's obsession with fantastic things, you know, and an obsession with fame and money and glory and exploitation. You know, this film was visually beautiful. My God, like it was like the CGI, the special effects were insanely high quality. I couldn't believe it. Like, oh my God, like the creature, it was such a simple looking creature. The creature looked like a UFO. It was like a disc of a creature with a big hole at the bottom. And it looked like a UFO, but it took a while for you to realize it was alive. We thought it was a ship for like half the film, and we didn't realize it was alive until there's a scene, like I want to say like 45 minutes into the film, where this character Jube, that's Steven Yeun's character here. He's the owner of that theme park. He had been feeding the creature horses all this time with the desire to domesticate and exploit it for money. And he has an event where this is the grand debut where he's showing people the creature and he's trying to coax it out with some horses. They're all staring at the creature. All of the people in the crowd, like 40 people in the crowd, staring at the creature. Instead of eating the horse, the creature eats them. All of these people get sucked into this thing. At this point, we still don't know it's alive yet. They all get sucked into this thing. And then we start hearing them all scream excruciating screams as they're being slowly digested by this thing. And it's kind of an extended scene. It's very long. It's a very long scene. And you're just hearing these screams. And they're not fast. The creature's flying around for hours and all you hear is the screams. And then eventually you hear a big crunch and then the screams stop. It is a pretty wide consensus that is the most terrifying part of the movie. That's the movie that people find the most unsettling, you know? And I found it really, really, really disturbing too, you know? And there's other like really, basically the masterful storytelling that's done here capitalizes on the realizations you have. Well, at the very beginning of the movie, the thing that kills OJ and M's father is that they're outside on the ranch. They're messing with some horses. They hear what sounds like a scream coming from the sky. They're looking up at the sky, and suddenly random items start falling from the sky at a really high speed, like spare change, nickels, dimes, keys. And one of them falls into the father's eye and kills him. We find out later that's the creature regurgitating the pocket contents of the people it just ate. And you don't realize that until it happens again later in the movie, when it also, like pretty much after it has devoured all those people at that event, it does the same thing. And you're just like, oh my God, that's the reason that why that happens, you know? Another thing is, remember that horrible scream that they heard? Like they looked up in the sky, like, what the hell was that? Those screams whenever the creature would zoom by and you would hear screams for hours, that's people that it just ate. That's people that it's just ate that are being slowly digested. How fucked is that? Another thing is the sound design in this. The sound design was really well done in this movie, man. Like, oh my god, it really added to the general terror of the film. Like when it goes really really quiet and then suddenly really 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 loud. Like there was a really great scene that really sticks in my mind where OJ is investigating the where that event was. The event's empty now because the creature just ate all those people. And the creature's still flying around up there, and OJ's like kind of confused, and he looks in the distance and he sees the creature come at it. And the creature is coming slowly, slowly, slowly. There's no music happening, and suddenly the creature is right up on the camera, and the music gets really fucking loud. And it was just such a really dramatic moment. It was very scary. It was very fucking scary, and it just kind of puts you in the moment. It put you like if you were there, if that happened and you were there, you know. I thought the film was really well paced as well. I've seen a lot of criticism with people saying that the film is slow. I really didn't feel like it was that slow, considering the whole premise. Excuse me. The whole plot was the two siblings and that random dude that works at Fry's Electronics. They were just trying to get the damn thing on camera. Like I thought they did a pretty good job with that. There was even like a whole ass like plan scene where they went, it was like really elaborate. They went and bought like hella wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men and put them all over their many acres of land, because how they know the creature's coming is that it has an EMP field around it. So whenever the wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men would hit the ground, they know that the creature is near. It was really well done. I was like, holy shit. Like I thought it was really well placed personally. Even up to the last moment was, and that's where we got our retribution, by the way. Like something that I feel is necessary in all films, really all horror movies, but particularly horror movies that deal in black trauma. They need retribution. They need an ending that we can look forward to. That's our relief. You know, and we got the relief because at the very last moment of the movie, Kiki Palmer, Emerald, got the picture. She got the picture of the creature. Like, that's retribution, bro. I thought the cast was really incredible as well. Like the whole cast too. I was kind of shocked on like seeing everybody's reviews online. Like people are definitely loudly or they're loudly applauding Kiki Palmer's performance, and I do too because I thought she was great. But a lot of people are kind of shitting on Daniel Kaluuya because his character was very reserved. You know, his character didn't say a lot. He was kind of a few words. I don't think that makes for a boring character, because if you paid attention to his mannerisms, to the expressions on his face, to the very small subtle things he would do, to those little moments where his personality that he kept inside would come out, like it was really well controlled. That's what I saw. That's what I got from Daniel Kaluuya's performance, was control. You know, I didn't see it as boring at all. You know, I thought, and in fact, I thought he was actually even a little unsettlingly controlled. Like I was constantly thinking, what's going on in his head? There was a moment in the show, like a pretty long extended scene, where he was in a car. The creature is hovering above him, waiting for him to come out of the car so he can eat him. And this is the moment where he realizes, OJ realizes that the creature's only going to eat you if you look it in the eye. And that's when he realized that. This whole scene, silent. He didn't say a word. He didn't say a word. And he didn't have to, because he acted the fuck up. We got what we needed out of that scene. We got everything we needed out of that fucking scene because of his performance, you know? And I think that takes a lot of effort. That's not an easy thing to do. That's not an easy thing to do. It's easy to like somebody to give you words on a paper and you to read the words and call it acting. You can do that shit, but it's not easy to act with few words. And I think that Daniel Kaluuya really fucking blew me away in that specifically. Let's talk about some of the themes, some of the things we saw. One of the biggest themes in the movie was around domestication of quote unquote wild animals. And the movie was on the nose about this, you know. The biggest one being horses. So the two siblings own a horse ranch, where they lease out their horses to, they're in LA. They lease out their horses to Hollywood for movies and commercials and all that stuff. So there's a lot of talk about domesticating, quote, breaking horses, you know. And we see this theme of domestication come up with other things in the movie, like Gordy. So basically, the Steven Yeun's character Jube is a child star, and he was the star of a show that was called, I think, Gordy's Time or something, or Gordy something about Gordy. And Gordy's an ape. Gordy's a monkey. They have a live monkey, presumably untrained because it's the 90s. Who the fuck knows? A live monkey that they're trying to put on a damn sitcom with children, and just exploiting the fuck out of this monkey, trying to domesticate a wild animal on fucking TV here. Guess what happens with Gordy at the beginning of the fucking movie? In the opening minutes, we see Gordy. Something fucking happened that set Gordy off because he went on a fucking rampage and almost damn near killed the fucking the Jube's co-star. And it kind of seemed like it was also because she was looking at him. Basically, I think the reason why he beelined to her, what happened was something like they released balloons or something, and a balloon hit like a light and it popped, and that set him off. And he went for her specifically because she was looking him in the eye. That's another thing that's going to come back later. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But yeah, this idea of domesticating wild animals for our entertainment was a very interesting theme that kept coming out throughout the movie. It comes again with our big creature. Our big creature, which we will come to know as Jean Jacket. That's the name that our protagonists have dubbed it. And it's kind of the same idea with humans trying to domesticate animals for their entertainment. And it's not really it isn't really anything our main characters did, other than the fact that they're trying to exploit the thing by getting a picture of it to get rich off of it. But it's mostly around Jube. Jube was trying to groom this creature into kind of the same way the same way he observed Gordy. And I think that's kind of the connection that the filmmaker wanted it to be in, because Jube was Gordy's co-star. And in that freak accident where Gordy was like mauling his castmates, he didn't touch Jube. And we think the reason why he didn't touch Jube is because the way that Jube was hiding, it was hiding his eyes, so he wasn't making eye contact, and that's why he didn't touch Jube. Unfortunately, that left a lasting impression on Jube that I think he felt like he had a gift for domesticating wild things. And so he felt empowered to try to domesticate this fucking alien, and it got him fucking killed. And that's the outcome of trying to domesticate wild animals. And we see that multiple times, is when you try to do it, you don't go by their rules, you try to make them conform to your own human rules, you're gonna die. Exploitation is the next theme. And when the exploited fight back because the folks aren't following their rules. These are the actual words that came out of the movie. It's something that OJ mentioned, that when you're breaking horses, it's not dominating them. You know, you're not really domesticating them. You're kind of coming to an agreement. You know, you're coming to agreement together that these are my rules and those are your rules, and let's follow them together. It's apparent in the very early in the movie, there's a horse scene where OJ brings a horse to a movie set for like a commercial or something. And OJ is trying to explain the rules of engagement for the horse so that they can be safe. And the people running the movie set didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear it. So they were just like, okay, let's just start using the horse. They freaked out the horse, and the horse tried to kick somebody, you know? And it's like, OJ was trying to tell you that was going to happen. He's just like, you have to respect the horse. You have to do it right, or they're going to kick back. And that's what happened, right? Same with Gordy, you know? Gordy, he ended up mauling Jube's co-star. And honestly, it really wasn't even kind of her fault. It was because the producers wanted them to release a bunch of balloons in a damn movie set, in a TV show sitcom set. The balloons popped, and for some reason they didn't think that was going to set off the damn monkey. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't even have a handler. Usually on movie sets these days, folks, whenever you have animals on the stage, animals involved in movies and TV shows, they generally have handlers whose entire job is to care for that animal, train that animal, and be present when that animal is working, you know? and come in and remove the animal if the animal becomes agitated, and inform the production crew on the set of the safety measures needed to keep the animal in check. Guessing all of that shit was missing for Gordy's home. Uh, so yeah. And then finally, exploitation, when they exploited Fight Back. When Jube tried to domesticate Jean Jacket was just like, lunch, you know? All of these people really thought that Jean Jacket was just going to put a show on for them, and they got schmurdered for it. The next theme is the greed of man. There was a great line in this movie that kind of stuck out to me. And here's the thing with Jordan Peele, guys, a small tangent. If you've seen other Jordan Peele movies, Get Out and Us, and even like his other stuff like Keanu and stuff, Jordan Peele is a very deliberate man. There is not a single detail in any movie, any project he does that is not intentional. So there's a moment, an interaction with Jube and OJ where they're trying to negotiate selling more of the Hayward horses to Jube. And Jube is leading them to believe that the horses are fine, and that they're saying, okay, so let's start thinking about like a payback period. And Jube is just like, oh, or like a buyback period, so that they can buy the horses back. And Jube was just like, oh yeah, sure. Little did they know, Jube's been feeding their horses to the fucking creature. Jube, when he invites them in, he said, "Su casa es mi casa," which is supposed to be kind of like a saying, because it's mi casa es su casa. But what did I just tell you about Jordan Peele? That man is deliberate. That was on purpose. And it turned out, we learned later, Jube planned on buying out all of the Hayward horses as well as their ranch, and to serve his agenda of domesticating Jean Jacket, because he was establishing the whole area around the ranch as Jean Jacket's hunting ground. And that's the reason why Jean Jacket was stuck there, and why Jean Jacket kept abducting the Hayward horses, because Jube made that happen. He was doing that on purpose. He was manipulating and using them for his own greed. What else? The greed of man. Our whole protagonist, their whole mission is to get a photograph of this creature. They put themselves in harm's way. They almost die multiple times, all to get a picture. All to get a picture of it. They provoke it. They go out of their way. They even have OJ has when they even find out that the only reason why Jean Jacket is attacking people is because they make eye contact. They made a special shirt that had eyes on the back of the hood, so that they could coax it out and get a perfect picture of it. You know, it's crazy. All of this just to get a damn picture, just for greed. They could have left. They could have said, fuck this, and just let the FBI deal with it. But no, they wanted the clout. And to their credit, they got it. But I mean, at what cost? At what cost, you know? Not to mention the greed. There were other bouts of greed in the film that were more on the nose. Although this was kind of a funny little segment. Basically, when OJ and M were putting together their whole plan to try to get this picture of this creature, at that moment, news had already gotten out that 40 people were just up and missing. So the town was already getting a little bit scrutinized by the media. So then this guy comes in, and he's got this chrome helmet, and he's in this all black suit in this all electric motorbike, and he looks kind of like a government guy. He's just taking pictures. He looks so sketchy, and it was kind of a joke moment, because then we find out he's from TMZ. He's a TMZ reporter. And then he just up and dies too, because basically they warn him, because he's got an electric bike. They warn him, hey man, don't go over there with that electric bike. You know, it's not safe. He does it anyway, because he's greedy. He's from TMZ. What happens, guys, when you drive an all electric? This is a direct quote out of the movie. What happens when you drive an all electric bike at 60 miles per hour and an EMP field going in the opposite direction passes over you? The bike pretty much stops on a dime, and he breaks all of his fucking bones. It was just, it's retribution. What I say, retribution. How every horror movie needs retribution. He got retribution. He did do stupid shit, win stupid prizes. It really was that. That's kind of what this movie is. That's kind of what this movie is. Do stupid shit, win stupid prizes. This movie was a whole cycle of people doing stupid shit and getting stupid ass prizes from it. Nope was really good, y'all. Let's talk about some of the things I noticed. So these are some of the things I took away. I've been looking online at reviews and discussions, and I'm so shocked. I am so shocked that I have barely seen any mention on the film's commentary on race. You know, it's funny because like a lot of people are saying that this movie was meant to just be asking questions. So it's the movie is designed to make you think too much into it. But I know Jordan Peele. That man would not have made this movie and put these thoughts so obviously in the movie, these themes so obviously, and not have had a race come to his mind. For the domestication theme I mentioned before, as soon as I realized that was a recurring theme, the first thing I thought of was slavery. That's the first fucking thing I thought of, y'all. And I was just so shocked. I was looking at Reddit reviews. Nobody mentioned it. I was just like, that was the first fucking thing I thought. When you see domesticating a quote unquote, that's why I put that wild in fucking quotes. A wild person, like they're wild in the white people that enslaved people from Africa viewed them as quote unquote wild animals, and they quote unquote domesticated them. They took away their language, they took away their names, they took away their history and their heritage, and they made them conform to their rules. You know, domestication. That I could not believe nobody else fucking thought about that. That's the first thing I thought of. Next thing. The fact that the creature was hostile only after you looked it in the eye, I connected that pretty strongly and immediately to police brutality of Black and brown people, as well as Karens. Like you see the videos of Karens, like they're like a Black person is literally just there existing, literally just sitting there fucking existing, and this bitch wants to fucking call the cops on them. I kind of saw the same thing. The fact that as soon as you looked that creature in the eye, it was on site. They're coming for you. That is what it came to me. That innate fear, like that fear I felt that those people in the movie were feeling. That's the fear that Black people feel when they get pulled over by a cop. That if they look at that cop the wrong way, that's gonna be their last day on the earth, you know. Or if they get the wrong Airbnb and have the neighbor look at them and see their Blackness. If they look at that neighbor the wrong way, they're going to call the cops on them, and that's going to be the end of their life. That is the first thing I fucking thought of, bro. The idea that if you keep your head down, comply, you won't die. That was so overtly obvious to me when I realized that theme. Those are kind of the biggest ones, honestly. I noticed other things, but they weren't really as impactful to me as those 2 points, I think. So that is my review of Nope. I thought Nope was very good. I thought it was very good. I think it's a film, just like all of the other Jordan Peele films. Excuse me. I think it's a film that you can take a lot away from. I think everybody can take something different away from it. And I hope you guys go and watch it. I know I just spoiled the whole fucking thing, but maybe you watch it a second time and maybe you see something that I didn't see. And that is Gozy Stands. We're going to take a quick break, y'all. A quick intermission, 5 minutes. But when we come back, we're going to talk about Black trauma in horror movies. So stay tuned, folks. Hello, folks. If you like what you're hearing or what you're watching, then please check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/GozyMai. That's GOZIMAI, where you'll catch me playing video games, cracking dumbass jokes, and having a good ass time. I post my schedule every Monday on Twitter, so please come and say hi. And now back to the show. All right, y'all, we are back with our part 2 of Pop Your Culture. Ow, you bubs, pop your culture like this. Tell me about it, goes you work that shit. Ow, you bubs, pop your culture like this. Tell me about it, goes you work that shit. All right, y'all. With our second segment of Pop Your Culture, we're going to open up on Gozy Zooms In. In this segment, I'm going to pick a topic and deep dive into it and give you a little bit of Gozy analysis. Our topic this month is Black trauma and horror movies. Now, pretty much ever since, Black trauma and horror are not new. You know, it can. I mentioned it earlier. A lot of people can even say like Black history is Black horror. You know, I would say that the most recent time, the most recent example. Okay, maybe the oldest example in recent memory where I saw Black trauma and it made me uncomfortable in a bad way was 12 Years a Slave. And the unrelenting depiction of Black pain on screen, and for reasons that I really couldn't discern, you know. And pretty much ever since 12 Years a Slave and the fact that that got an Oscar, now everybody and their mom wants to go after Black trauma and Black pain for Oscar bait, you know? Or if not Oscar bait, for social to have social to teach something. I don't know, we're going to talk about it. I see Black trauma in horror has three pillars I want to talk about: social commentary, shock value, and the horror itself. Let's talk about what those things are. Let's start with social commentary, particularly when it's good. A good social commentary for Black trauma is going to be something with nuance, you know? Racism is inherently a part of this country. It's a part of our reality. It's not often that it's overt racism. You know, we see the Karen videos all the time, sure. But I feel like most of the time you're not going to see it like that. It's going to be in more subtle ways, more systematic ways. And when films can tackle this topic in a way that is subtle, yet very clearly holds up a mirror to our society, it's successful. You know, it gives the audience a little bit of credit to connect those dots themselves, as opposed to shoving it down our throats. An example of this being done well is Get Out. If you've never seen Get Out, it is about a community of white people, liberal white people, mind you, that makes a practice of kidnapping Black men and Black women and injecting, pretty much taking their brains, shoving what makes them them down into what's called, I think, the dark place or something. What is it? No, the sunken place. The sunken place. So they're pretty much in a prison inside their own mind, watching their life happen before them through a TV with no control. And their bodies are controlled by the white people. The white people can inject their brains into them and control them, you know? And it that premise is so horrific. It's so horrific. But it is so not undercut. It's so subtly revealed to you, but I don't know, it just has such a subtle way of revealing that horror to you, that in a way that when you rewatch the film and you watch these interactions and these microaggressions that these very liberal white people have with these Black men and Black women, it makes it so like, oh my God, it's obvious. You know, it's so well done how they did it. And it was such an interesting choice to make them liberal. Usually when you see racism depicted in film, it's like racist ass rednecks spouting the N-word with all the fucking Confederate flags and all that shit, you know? The really fucking exaggerated shit, the MAGA shit, right? And it's kind of tired. You know? So seeing I live in Seattle. Washington. And it's a very liberal city. And a lot of the white folks that live here really love to believe that they are so above being racist, that they are just incapable of it, that they don't, quote, don't see color. They're those types. You know, there's a lot of wonderful people that live here, but a lot of like liberal racism is a thing. Liberal racism is a thing. And it was a kind of a very interesting choice to go that route, because I feel like the reason why a lot of filmmakers don't go that route is because it's subtle. It's because it is subtle, and it's, I guess, maybe too realistic, you know? But I think that realism is what grounds it. That realism, that connection to what we actually see on a day-to-day basis is what grounds it. So Get Out was a really good example of having that trauma be there. It's there, but it allows the audience to find it, as opposed to saying, here, audience, here it is on a silver platter. You know, it gives the audience a little bit of credit. Social commentary in Black trauma films needs to be relevant. This is the only time in this list that I'm going to say that Antebellum was in the good here. This was the only positive thing that I could pull from this film. I just watched this movie for the first time a couple days ago. We will talk in depth about what's wrong with it later, but I'll talk about the good first. So the premise of Antebellum is that there are very successful, very outspoken in public Black women and Black men that are being kidnapped by a racist ass Southern senator who runs a Civil War reenactment compound. And he is, I guess, hidden in that compound is a straight up plantation where he's forcing modern day Black men and Black women to be slaves, you know, and subjecting them to the horrors that come with that. The only thing about this film that they got right, I think, was the relevance of some of the imagery that they were doing. Something that you'll see throughout this film of all of the, at any time, pretty much any time you see any of the racist white people that are like role playing as Confederate soldiers and plantation owners and plantation masters, and like, you know, whenever you see the use of the Confederate flag a lot. Like more than you think that they put. I really back in like the 1860s when the Civil War was actually happening, I'm sure they waved that flag, but it wasn't. I don't think it was like this like symbol that it is today to racist people. Racist people see this as like, oh, that's my heritage. That flag, they put it on their cars. They put it on their keychain. They put it as their background on their phone. You know, they put it on their dog's collar. They put it in their hair. They put it on their shirts. They put it on their socks. They are obsessed with that fucking flag. They are obsessed with that fucking flag. They call that flag their fucking heritage. I don't fucking think they had anywhere near that level of devotion for that flag in the 1860s when the Civil War happened. You know what I think? I think they saw that flag the way we see the American flag. It's a fucking flag. It's a fucking flag, you know? And that flag that was represents everything wrong with at that time, represents treason and seceding from a country, from the nation, from the Union. The meaning has warped into the personification of objectification of Black people. That is what it is now. They call it their fucking heritage. It is a symbol of wanting slavery back. And this movie made a very, very firm stance for that, because they used that flag as much as any other modern racist person would use it. You know, it was relevant. Every single time I saw them use that flag, that is what hit my brain. Like, what hit my brain is that anytime I see anybody, in real life with that flag, I know this is what they want. This is the reality they want. They want me, my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, everybody that looks like me to be slaves again. That's what they fucking want, you know? This movie got a lot wrong, but that relevance, they got that shit right, because that shit landed with me. That shit fucking landed, and it was effective. It was fucking effective. The next thing with social commentary is that what makes a good horror movie that tackles Black trauma is multidimensionality, you know, and intersectionality, not just about race. You know, it's very easy to portray Black pain on screen and call it horror, because it is horrific. In and of itself, it is horrific, you know, and it's lazy. It's lazy to fucking do that. And it can very easily become offensive. The films that do it right have race as a part of it, but there's also another dimension there. An example of this is Us. Us is led by a black cast, a Black family that leads the cast, you know. They are, you know, it's not really like anything past that, really. It's just a Black family, you know, And while the racial undertones are there, they're there. They happen. The microaggressions happen. There's a white family they interact with. There's like a weird dynamic between the two fathers where the other father, like, I guess, makes more money and kind of was throwing it in the black father's face a little bit. Like there's microaggressions there. It's there. It's a part of the setting because it's part of our reality. But it wasn't all that was there, because at the core of it, Us was about classism, about treating a subset of our society as second-class citizens and not giving them the same rights as others. That's what it was about. But there's a level of intersectionality there because that is inherently a part of the systematic racism we face too. You know, people, black families and black people that live in underserved communities that are heavily impacted by systematic racism, heavily impacted by redlining and over-policed neighborhoods, you know, in a wide disparity of wealth between white people and black people. Like, those are the people, they're seen as second-class citizens, you know? This is about them too. It's not just about them, but it's about them too, you know? And that's what makes Us so good, because it's there. The black trauma is there. But that's not all that's there. You know, there's more. And Nope is another example of this too. And then finally, when social commentary is good in terms of the black experience in horror movies, it's intentionally straying away from horror movie tropes. Something you see in a lot of, you don't really see it actually anymore. Thankfully, the Hollywood has got a little better about it, but in a lot of horror movies, historically, commit the sin of tokenism. Token black guy, token black girl, as well as killing the black folks off first, which is always wild to me because, quite frankly, in a situation, y'all see me play horror games. If a black person's in a situation where there's some fucking supernatural shit going on, we gonna nope the fuck out of there. Why the fuck was Nope called Nope? Which is ironic because they didn't nope the fuck out of there. But you feel me, right? You feel me, right? Like, it's kind of crazy that the black person always the one that dies when we're gonna be the first one leaving. We're gonna be the first one saying goodbye. You feel me? So, but anyway, it's intentionally straying from those tropes is good. What's pictured here is a screenshot from the film Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. And that film had a final girl. We talked about final girls last episode. Final girl is the horror movie trope where there's a last girl that survives the big bad. And our final girl was black in this film. And that was kind of the first time that happened. That was kind of the first time that's kind of ever happened in a horror movie. And it was really impactful, I think. For one, this movie rocks. This is a really good movie. Like, it's from the Tales from the Crypt series. So if you haven't seen it, go fucking watch this movie. It's really fucking good. I've seen it like 12 times. Jada Pinkett Smith is great in it. Billy Zane is great in it. It's got a great cast, great ensemble cast. Like, just go see this movie. But like, the idea is that they made a stance in social commentary, a very intentional stance that has its root in racism, you know. It's racist. It's racist that they would always commit the sin of tokenism and kill the black people first. That is fucking fucked up, right? And they made a stance against that. Not only is the black girl gonna survive in the end, but she's the main character. Let's talk about the bad. Content warning on this image. This image is from Lovecraft Country. Lovecraft Country, you'll notice a lot of the examples in this list are going to be both on the good side and the bad side. Some of them do good. Some of them do bad. In this case, Lovecraft Country did bad. Lovecraft Country committed the sin of being too on the nose, doing too much. Did we need to see a little girl get chased by a pickaninny demon and then get infected and turn into a pickaninny demon herself? Did we need to fucking see that? This is about Lovecraft creatures. You know, we get it. I get it. Lovecraft, it was his whatever the fuck his name. I don't even give a fuck about saying his real name because he was a racist fuck. Who cares? Lovecraft was a racist asshole. And unfortunately, he created a lot of great horror that most of our horror these days, most horror genres stem directly from his mind. And it goes back to like guys that like separate the artist from the art, because he really did make a very, very deep impact on horror as a genre. but he was a racist piece of shit, and I'm glad he's dead. You feel me? Um, we didn't need to see this. We didn't need to fucking see this in Lovecraft Country. And this ain't even the only thing they did that was too much, you know? When a fucking horror movie or horror TV show does too much like this, it's offensive. And for what? What did this add to the experience? Shock value? Okay, she's scary looking. It's offensive. They could have made her a demon that wasn't a pickaninny. Let's talk about Antebellum again. Another example of not giving the audience enough credit. You know, they spent the first 40 minutes of this film depicting very offensive depictions of Black people in slavery, as slaves. And they very intentionally did it in the lens of modern day. Modern day Black people as slaves. I found that so deeply offensive, it's not even fucking funny. And they didn't even need to do it for this long. It's one thing, there was like a really profound opening shot of the film that was actually very well shot, that was extremely horrific, and it set the tone fine that people that are in modern day are being made slaves right now. Cut it at 10 minutes, be done, move the fuck on. But no, they didn't do that. These filmmakers decided to prolong it. They showed some of the most horrible shit. They showed a man that basically a woman was killed, was horribly murdered, a Black woman horribly murdered, and they made her husband watch. Unnecessary. They made him go into the furnace where her ashes still were as punishment and sitting there. They had a pregnant Black woman, a new arrival, come. They had her very nearly raped, you know, because I guess the fucking quote unquote Confederates, which mind you guys, these are not Confederates. They're modern day alt-right assholes cosplaying as Confederates, holding Black people hostage. That's this fucking premise right now. They had like a get together, I guess, talking about these Black women who are being forced to be slaves in modern day can give them, quote, whatever they need. They're pimping them out. Was that necessary? Fucking no. No, that wasn't necessary. They had that same pregnant woman get brutally beaten up by a dude that she was trying to empathize with. One of the fucking quote unquote Confederates. He kicked her in the stomach. They had her miscarry the next day. Did they need to show that? No. What'd they have her doing the next day after that? They had her hang herself. Did they need to show that? No. 40 minutes of this shit. 40 minutes of just horrible shit after horrible shit after horrible shit. Who the fuck is this for? Who the fuck is this for? Right? It just doesn't make any fucking sense. You know? There is a way to do this, and this wasn't it. This wasn't it. I sat through that shit too. I sat through that shit because I wanted to see where the fuck is this going. And quite frankly, the movie might not have even been that bad if they would have just cut off 30 minutes of that shit. It really might not have even been that bad, quite frankly. It had other issues, but we ain't talking about that right now. We're talking about the social commentary. The next pillar for Black trauma in film is shock value. Horror needs shock value. It needs horror. It needs something that's horrible, something that scares you. And when you use Black trauma in that lens, there needs to be a purpose to it. You know, if you're going to include Black trauma in a horror setting, there needs to be a reason for it. What is pictured here is a screenshot from a film called His House. It came out last year. Very, very, very good horror movie. Oh my gosh. And it's about two refugees, like a refugee couple that came from an African country that was under war. They escaped and they were placed at refugee status in England, where they were given a home, and they were told to assimilate pretty much, and fit in, quote unquote, fit in. Throughout the film, you see microaggressions, racially charged and xenophobically charged throughout the whole film. They're not overt. Remember what I was mentioning before? A lot of racism in this country. There is very blatant racism. It's there, but the vast majority of the racism that each of us face day to day is a lot more subtle than that. It's systematic. It's baked into this country, and it's not just us. This film took place in England. There's racism there too. Did y'all think that there was racism only in America? Oh no, honey, no. That's everywhere. It's everywhere. And yeah, you see it throughout the whole movie. Like there's a moment where the white agent that is like giving them their house, like giving them the house that they're assigned to, he made a comment like, "You're one of the good ones." That's a microaggression. It's a fucking microaggression. There's another part of the movie where the wife is trying to find where the doctor is, where the hospital is, and she asks two black teenagers where the directions, and they're sitting there making fun of her accent, fucking jerking her around till like giving her bad instructions and stuff. Like it's showing trauma. This is trauma. This is trauma that's real. It's what we feel, but there's a purpose to it. It's to show it adds to the film in that it shows it adds to their isolation. They feel isolated. They feel like they're not home. They feel unwelcome, you know? And that's kind of like a recurring theme throughout the film. That's like haunting them is the feeling of being unwelcome, as well as a dark secret that they have. You guys really should go see this movie. I'm not even going to tell you any more about it. Go see this movie. It's a really good fucking movie. Black trauma for shock value is okay if the imagery that they are showing is appropriate and integral to the story. It is okay to show history as it was, because it happened. You know, there is a place for it. What is pictured here is a screenshot from the HBO show Watchmen. Watchmen opened up, the very opening 10 minutes of the first episode is a very realistic depiction of the Tulsa massacre from the early 19th century, or excuse me, early 20th century. We see horrible shit that happened, but they did not put it in there. They did not stick that into the show just to shock you. You know, it's there too. I mean, it's shocking. It's there, but the actual expositional reason for it being there is to show this character taking his boy away from the massacre, because this little boy ended up being a very prominent character in the show. This was backstory for a character. This was very integral for that character's development later in the show. There was a reason for it. It was necessary to show this, and it was necessary to show it in the way that it happened, because that informed the character's trauma, because that trauma followed that character throughout his entire life. And inform that, and it was integral to that character's development. That's okay. That's okay, you know? And it should make you uncomfortable, and it did, because quite frankly, a whole lot of fucking people in this country didn't even know the Tulsa massacre happened until they saw this. This was profoundly impactful in terms of its impact on society, educating people on what happened. We're going to stick with the Tulsa massacre because another show also covered it. Lovecraft Country. I told you there's sometimes these shows do sins and sometimes they actually get something right. Showing raw but true historical events, and they can be upsetting, and they can make you cry. I was in tears in this episode. I could not stop crying when this episode happened. It was not offensively explicit. You're seeing explosions happening around her, and it's landing the gravity of what's happening. Her walking through this. By the way, the point of this was they had to go back in time to the Tulsa massacre and retrieve a book, because this book was like a magic spell book that they needed. So again, integral to the plot, but this still elicited an extremely profound emotional response from me. And you're not seeing black bodies being tortured here. You're not seeing black people. You're seeing corpses. There are corpses on the ground. The imagery is strong and it is raw, but we're not being subjected to black torture for the sake of it. And they did that well. That was a good thing that they did to not do that, because that's exploitation. Is plain and simple. Let's talk about that. The bad. Unnecessary depictions of black pain in the guise of exposition is wrong. What is pictured here is a screenshot from a film called Detroit. Not necessarily a horror movie, but it was horror to me. This is technically billed as like a crime drama or even like a thriller. This movie, I will never watch this movie ever again. Ever the fuck again. Why the fuck did they have to? They made this movie. This movie was based on a true thing that happened during the Detroit riots in, I think, the 70s, where the cops, like a bunch of black teenagers, I don't even think they were teenagers, black college students, men, and a couple of white women were having a party. They were all there voluntarily. They were having a good time. Somebody calls cops on them. The cops show up in riot gear and shit with fucking guns, like shotguns and shit. And they torture and brutalize these men. And even the women too. They torture and brutalize them, and people died. People were murdered here. This happened. And it was horrible. Did we need to make a movie about it? No. Did this movie need to be fucking made? This movie was widely panned, by the way. This movie was a fucking box office failure because all it served was 90 minutes of black torture. Black torture porn. That's all it was. You know? Why'd they even have to make this movie? A big excuse that filmmakers like to make, I call it an excuse because it really is a fucking cop-out excuse, is they think they're trying to get white audiences to empathize with these with black people like this. Like show them, oh, look at all these horrible things that happen to black people, so empathize. But where they fall short is that this pain that we're seeing depicted, white audience have never had to feel that pain. They've never had to know any relative or any ancestor having to feel a pain like that. But every black person in this country does. When a black person watches a movie like this, it is a very different experience from when a white person watches it. Because a white person might come away from it, oh man, they might come away saying, oh, that's so horrible. Racism is bad. A black person will come away from this movie more traumatized. It's just more trauma. You know? It serves no purpose other than to just traumatize us more. And it doesn't work in having the whole like mission of having white people empathize with it. They can't empathize with it because they will never have to go through this. They never have. Their ancestors never have. They can't. All they can do is just try to be better and educate themselves. And quite frankly, you can educate yourself without watching 90 minutes of black people getting tortured. This is another example. So I kind of include this screenshot a little ironically because I actually I thought that this scene in Antebellum, this is that meant what I mentioned before, that first 10 minutes where they had a really kind of well shot scene of like the best. You can tell that they put the most effort and attention to detail in that scene because it was extremely meticulously shot, and it was kind of beautifully done in a really sick way because it depicted something horrible. This woman, what you're seeing is correct. There's a guy on a horse dressed as a Confederate soldier with a lasso, and he's about to throw it at her around her neck. And it was horrible to watch. You can educate non-black audiences without extended and graphic depictions of black pain. Do I think they should have had this in the movie? No. I think the movie would have been improved if they would have showed this and stopped it there and then moved on with it and didn't show any more black torture. But I don't even think they needed to show this because at the end of the day, we all know slavery was bad. We have seen this rehashed so many fucking times. Pretty much back when 12 Years a Slave did it, we don't need to ever see it again because they did it already. So why rehash this? Why have these actors portray these disgusting things that we already know that happened? Who are you trying to prove this to? Who are they trying to convince that slavery was bad? Give the audience a little credit. We know slavery was bad. They're trying to teach white people a lesson by abusing black bodies on screen. Let that sink in. That's what's happening here. They're personifying this raw violence, but they fail to depict the humanity of the black people that are being tortured. Because all the white audiences see here, they see, oh, that poor black person. Oh, I can't believe that happened. Oh, that's so sad. Oh, that's so wrong. Racism's wrong. I'm so happy I'm not racist. I'm not racist. I'm not like that, so I'm not racist. That's what they're getting. That's the reaction that they're getting, you know? And then they keep making these movies, and it's Oscar bait. Like 12 Years a Slave happened. That was like more 10 years ago. They're still making these movies. I went to go see fucking Thor. No, it wasn't Thor. It was Nope. When I saw Nope this weekend, one of the trailers that happened, they're making a fucking movie about Emmett Till. For those that don't know who Emmett Till is, Emmett Till was a 14-year-old boy who was from Chicago. I think he was from Chicago. He's from the North in the 50s. And he was visiting family down in the South by himself. He got on a train. His mom kissed him goodbye, like he was gonna be fine. He was just visiting family. He goes into a store, allegedly whistles at a white woman in the store. That's it. What happens next? He goes home, goes to sleep, and a mob of white people barge into his house, take him, drive him far away, beat him to death, lynch him, do unspeakable things to him, and then leave him there. And his mom gets a call saying that her son was just murdered. Horribly. Then they're making a movie about this. I can only hope that when they do, they can go one of two ways. Think of the things I've been saying tonight, folks. We know what happened to Emmett Till. We know what happened. They don't need to show us. That is when I'm going to go see that movie, it's going to decide whether or not I think that movie is good or not. Because if they make us sit through an extended depiction of a black body being tortured, I will walk out of that fucking theater. They have an opportunity here to focus on the impact after, because what his mother did, Emmett Till's mother, when she had his funeral, she made it an open casket funeral so that the world could see what those people did to her son, so that they could see his bludgeoned face, unrecognizable that it's even a 14-year-old boy. And that kind of helped, among other events, helped spark the civil rights movement. That is the impact that movie could have. And I hope they go in that direction. We'll see. But I digress. Yeah. This is another example of the Oscar bait, like the 12 Years a Slave. Like we've already seen it. My overarching point being the horrific realities of slavery depicted on film has been done. Filmmakers don't need to do it anymore. And any filmmaker that is choosing to still do it, they're not doing it in the service for social justice or social commentary. They're doing it for shock value. They're doing it as a cheap vehicle toward shock value to sell tickets. Another thing about Black trauma in film is that if you're subjecting your audience through the trauma and you don't have retribution at the end, you've heard me say that a couple times tonight. Retribution, the payoff, the reward, if you will, the thing that you made the audience sit through that for, the audience is going to feel cheated. That we watched all of this horrible shit for nothing to come from it. This show, Them, is single-handedly the worst show I've ever seen in my fucking life. This show was so horribly offensive, and I'm still shocked to this day seeing anybody on the internet seeing any praises about this show. Because I guarantee you, I will pay you $150. Anybody on the internet that is saying anything positive about this show is not Black. If you are a Black person and you actually watched any duration of this show, you did not come away from this show liking it at all. Because this show was all the show was. It was 8 or 9 episodes of pure unadulterated torture porn and abusing of the abuse of black bodies. Racism in the name of being the horror itself. The horror of the show was racism. And there was even a supernatural element that was also deeply fucking racist that never really had a real payoff. You know, there was no real like reason for it. It was just racism for the sake of fucking racism. Torturing these people, torturing this family. And at the end, guess what happened? They all fucking died anyway. They all got shot up by police in the last moments of the fucking show. Why? Who the fuck? Who is this show for? Who is this fucking for? I'm not even going to talk about some of the fucking horrible things. Y'all need to look it up. Y'all need to look it up because I'm not even going to talk about some of the horrible crimes against humanity, the crimes against nature that were depicted on this show. And I know that they happened. I know that they fucking happened. Did we need to see it on TV? No. You know, an audience doesn't need to fucking see a baby get put in a bag and tossed between a bunch of racists until it dies. An audience doesn't need to fucking see that. This show was so deeply fucking offensive, it's not even funny. And it's honestly one of the biggest things that kicked off my fucking wanting to talk about this topic because quite frankly, this show never should have been made. All right, finally, let's talk about the horror itself. When black trauma is the setting or the reality, but not the horror itself, then the film is successful. You know, when you make the horror itself, the trauma, the racism, that's cheap. That's cheap. Racism and all of the horrible things that come with it is inherently horrible. And it harms viewers that are black because it's so rooted in our reality. You know, it is just poor filmmaking. But when you, make that trauma the reality of the setting, it changes it. So the screenshot you're seeing here is from a film called The People Under the Stairs. I watched it for the first time yesterday. I really liked it. It's kind of a horror comedy, actually. And the black experience and the trauma of black experience is very prevalent in the film. We open up the film on a family living in a very dilapidated apartment. A lot of little kid, it's a mother that has cancer. She's bedridden. Her young daughter that is trying to hold the house together. There's babies sleeping on the floor and whatnot. They ain't got no like basic clean, it's a bad situation and it's real. It's real. My dad grew up like that. My dad talked about that all the time. That's how he grew up. That shit's real. It's living in the projects, man. It's living in the fucking projects in a city that underserves that community, underserves and overpolices that community. That was the setting, though. That wasn't inherently the horror of the film, you know? Even the two villains of the film that were like kidnapping people and forcing them to live under their stairs in their house, that was a white man and a white woman who aren't even a couple. They're like brother and sister. It was a really weird dynamic. They were racist. They had racist like microaggressions and undertones, but their racism wasn't the horror. It was that they were fucking lunatic people kidnapping people and putting them in their basement. Like that was the horror of the movie. And I think that's what makes this movie so successful, that it still made a social stance and it said its piece about gentrification and the impact on the black community and how wrong it is for white people and people in privilege to make all of this money off of the backs of black people and not a single dime comes back to them. Like they made those stances and they hit hard. But that wasn't the horror. That was the message. That wasn't the horror. It was the reality. Candyman is another really good example. I found it kind of interesting that a lot of people didn't like Candyman. This is the 2021 version of Candyman that was directed by Nia DaCosta. I liked it. I thought it was so good. I thought it did such a good job with its message. Because it took a very artistic approach and empathetic approach in portraying black trauma And it was in service to the story, not for the purpose of shocking the audience. The example I'm talking about here is what's pictured here is Candyman's puppet show. Basically, the backstory of Candyman, of this big bad supernatural terror in the film, was told in the form of a puppet show. And even in like kind of a sloppy puppet show, you saw the hands in the background and everything. And what these puppets were depicting were the horror being black pain and intergenerational trauma manifesting itself as an eternal force of vengeance and an eternal cycle of violence. Because this new Candyman, how Candyman 2021 reshaped the character of Candyman. They reshaped it as the personification of black pain. Each of these stories that they told were Candyman, and they were based on real stories, but they weren't vulgar. It was not it was not offensive. It was shocking and heartful, and it elicited a very profound response because it, for one, it happened, and two, it was horrible, but it wasn't obscene. It wasn't they didn't show you that horror. Using this medium of puppetry got the point across without subjecting the audience to black torture porn. And some of the stories that they told, they were real stories. They told one of these puppets was the story of a black man who moved into a white neighborhood, and the white neighbors dragged him out of his house and tied him onto a pickup truck and drug him until he died. That's based on a true story. It happened. It was the lynching of James Byrd Jr. in 1998. We were in Texas. 2 white supremacists decided to do that to that man. That happened. You know, the vignette that we're actually seeing pictured right here was based on the story of George Stinney Jr., who was a 14-year-old boy, a little boy, very skinny little boy, who was the youngest person ever to go to the electric chair. He was accused of murdering 2 white girls, and in police custody, the police deprived him of food and being able to go to the bathroom. And they basically made it into a situation where he was coerced into confessing into the crime that he didn't even do. There's no evidence supporting that he did it. There was an all-white jury that deliberated for like 10 minutes, something like that. And they'd sentenced him to being executed by electric chair for nothing. He was exonerated, by the way. This happened in 1944. In 2014, he was exonerated. 70 years after his death, after his murder, mind you. He was so small and too short for the electric chair that they had to put books under him so that he could reach the helmet. This happened. And they depicted this in the film in a very impactful way, in a very educational way, and in a very effective way, but not in an offensive way. Not in a way to exploit black pain. And I thought that was a really masterful way to do it. I thought that Candyman, in that aspect, was very good because it was very good at portraying the source of this black pain. The fact that the horror of the film was this supernatural creature that manifested from black pain. I thought that was just it was creative and profound, and it really kind of like affected me on a deep level. So another example of them, like, it's showing black pain as horror itself is just lazy and offensive. It's not for black people. The audience is not for black people. So who the fuck is it for? Who's it for, right? Black trauma for entertainment is fucking disgusting because this shit happened to people, continues to happen to people, you know? And that's my stance on it. So that is my view on black trauma and horror movies. That is a heavy topic. Thank you guys for bearing with me with that, but it's a heavy topic, but it's a really important topic to talk about, you know, especially considering more and more of these films are coming out. And it really is important for us to have a dialogue as a society to talk about when these films get it right and when they get it wrong. And if they get it wrong, call them out on it, hold them accountable for it. And that is Gozi Sumsen. The next topic that we are going to cover, and it's the last topic tonight, is Throw It Back, where this is a segment where I talk about something that has been around for a long time, and I kind of give you the rundown on that topic, and then we speculate on the future. And this topic is a big one, folks. We are talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this is in service of San Diego Comic-Con that just happened last week, and we got a lot of bombshells on both the current phase we're in as well as the next phase the next two phases that are coming. So for those that don't know, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is set up in what we're calling phases, and they're effectively just chunks of movies and TV shows that come out. And they generally like to have them in a logical. They have to like to make them logical chapters in a saga. The first saga we saw was in phases 1 through 3, and that was the Infinity Saga, and that followed Thanos's quest to eliminate half the universe with the use of the Infinity Stones, and our heroes fight to reverse that. Both prevent it, which they failed to, and reverse it. So that amassed around 20, like more than 20 films over the course of 10 years. It was huge. It was revolutionary, and it kind of kicked off this idea of movie universes. Like we see this popping up in other places too. Like WB's got their monster universe with like King Kong and the Mummy and whatnot, and then you've got Sony's little mini universe, and you have the DCEU. Like it kind of really like revolutionized modern media in a way that now all of these studios are falling in line and trying to like make the same magic, and a lot of them can't really do it. Let's talk about phase 4. Phase 4 is where we left off after our heroes defeated Thanos and brought everybody back in a event we're going to call the blip. The blip is pretty much the moment when half the universe just snapped back into existence, which you can imagine was pretty impactful. And all of phase 4 so far was really dealing with the direct aftermath of that. We got a lot of new heroes, and not even just new heroes. We got some new heroes, and we also got some reboots for existing heroes. So Spider-Man got kind of a reboot at the end of phase 3, which took place right after the blip happened. Peter Parker's identity got revealed. His whole world gets turned upside down. And we see No Way Home, where we actually get introduced to the multiverse in No Way Home, because he breaks that a little bit, trying to get Doctor Strange to get the world to forget about him. And it makes it so that he eventually has to have Doctor Strange make everybody forget about him. And now Peter Parker kind of has a clean slate here. I don't know where they're going to go with this. I don't know if Sony is going to try to use this opportunity to totally reboot Spider-Man and kind of take him out of the MCU. It really could just kind of go either way. I think there's even supposed to be a Spider-Man 4 coming out. I don't know what the fuck that's going to happen. We also see Hawkeye's new protege, Kate Bishop, as well as Miss Marvel, which these are potential. I've seen murmurs that Kate Bishop actually might be a straight up Avenger, but I think that these are whispers of the Young Avengers. I've mentioned this in the past, that we've now been introduced to pretty much all of the key players to the Young Avengers. So they did not announce the Young Avengers this weekend, which was interesting. I don't know what their plans are for that. We know that they're coming because all of the players have been introduced to the series already, to the universe already, but we just don't know where they fit in. And it could just be that they're being mum about it. We also are now deep into the multiverse saga. Now that ever since we got kind of introduced to the multiverse with No Way Home, that idea of multiverse has been kind of recurring for the entire phase thus far. And we have some main players in this. We have Wanda. Wanda and her show WandaVision was our first intro to phase 4. It was our first real dealing with the consequences of what happened in phase 3. And in Wanda's case, her whole life kind of being ruined. She lost her brother in phase 3. She lost the love of her life in Infinity War, in Vision. She lost Vision, which she actually had to kill him with her bare hands, and then he just died anyway, which is kind of Doctor Strange's fault because he gave Thanos the time stone. So we enter phase 4 with Wanda in a really dark place. And she does a really bad thing. She enslaves a whole city, a whole town of people, forcing them to live this fantasy of her so that she can try to forget and live in a fantasy and have Vision with her even though he's gone and not face that he's gone, you know. Um and her larger role in the multiverse is when she assumes the role of the Scarlet Witch, and when she introduces us to the idea of oh, I forget what the term they use was. It's like a form of magic where people can assume the roles of their multiversal selves. So she can assume the role of a different Wanda. She can enter the mind of a different Wanda from a different universe. That's a new concept. That's a totally new concept that I know was going to come back because, like, magic in general isn't going anywhere. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, we're going to talk about Doctor Strange in a minute. But I mean, that already opened up the idea of more wizards and witches. Like, we got a new character, Clea, that came out of that. Agatha Harkness, who was the main antagonist for WandaVision, she's got her own show coming. So, like, the idea is that magic ain't going anywhere. That concept of assuming the role of a different version of you in a different universe, that's coming back. That's coming back. Doctor Strange, the breaker of the universe, especially now that he's assumed the role of Strange Supreme, he's kind of unlocked a new power. Like the fact that he unlocked his third eye, he's kind of become one of the most powerful beings in the multiverse right now. He's coming back too. I don't know where he will though. I was looking at phase 5 and I'm like, I don't know where Doctor Strange comes back in that, to be honest. I really don't know. Like, honestly, that's kind of like the biggest, I guess, criticism people are feeling in phase 4 is that there's just so much going on and so many characters and so much in flight that it's really difficult to foresee where things are going to come together. And I have theories on that. I don't think it's actually going to come together the same way Avengers did, where everyone's coming into one movie. I think it's actually going to stay smaller groups. Like, there's going to be different comings together intertwined, but I don't think there's actually going to be one big culminating thing. Maybe until Secret Wars happens in phase 6, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. But yeah, Doctor Strange also introduced the threat of incursions. We got a taste of that in What If with the evil Doctor Strange in What If, which I think that was actually Strange Supreme. I don't know. I don't know all the different fucking Doctor Strange names. There's a lot of Doctor Stranges, and they are generally evil, apparently. And incursions are basically when Doctor Strange fucks something up pretty big in his own universe, and it causes the universe to collapse in on itself. That's a new concept, and we've now seen it in 2 IPs from Marvel, so I'm sure that's coming up, especially in the post-credit scene of Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness. The new character Clea, played by the lovely, magnificent Charlize Theron, who is actually going to be Doctor Strange's love interest in the future, informs him that he's caused more incursions. So I'm sure that threat is going to come back. Loki, we have not seen him since his show. We saw his whole show as like a 6-episode series, chronicling his time with the TVA, which is the time variant associate. I don't fucking know. They're like time police. They're the people that keep the timeline straight. And the last we saw with Loki and his variant, Lady Loki, I forget her actual name, is that they blew up the timeline. They're pretty much the reason why the multiverse has been cracked open. And yeah, I don't know. Like, clearly Loki is going to be a key player here. He is presumably still in the TVA. He's made contact with Kang the Conqueror. He's kind of, at this moment, the only one who knows about Kang the Conqueror in the MCU. That's going to change in Ant-Man and the Wasp and Quantumania. That's going to change then. But right now, that gives Loki a very direct tie to Ant-Man and blah, 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 you know. So something to keep track of, folks, is Kang the Conqueror is pretty much going to be the Thanos of this multiverse saga. So keep track of who's making contact with him, because they are going to come back later. We also were introduced to the Watcher. Now, it's unclear the connection between What If and the larger MCU. I am pretty convinced that it is canon, but the showrunners keep mentioning outside that it's not that it's not canon, but they keep mentioning that their characters are different from what we've seen in the live action, which I'm like multiple things have like suggested against that. I'm pretty convinced the Watcher is gonna come into the live action. You do not cast someone as amazing as Jeffrey Wright only to use him in one IP. I'm sorry, man. He's coming back in a fucking movie. I don't believe it. I don't believe they're gonna fucking bring an actor that big onto the fucking thing and not utilize him more. So I think we're gonna see more of the Watcher. There is a What If season 2 coming out, but that actually wasn't on the roadmap, interestingly. But that is season 2 supposed to come out. The Sonyverse. This is a big question mark, guys. We've been seeing those, like we saw that the Venom, Tom Hardy's Venom made an appearance in No Way Home, a very, a very trolly, brief appearance and a post-credit scene. But I mean, he was there, so they were clearly making a stance, saying that like other Sony IPs being at least in the multiverse is fair game. Clearly, like, and I know there was also rumors that Andrew Garfield has been perhaps rumored to be brought back on for a potential Amazing Spider-Man sequel. So I think perhaps the Spider-Verse might be its own thing. I'm gonna make my stance now. I think Sony's gonna take Spider-Man out of the MCU. I think that they made that clean slate wipe in No Way Home because they're gonna take him out of the MCU and they're gonna have their own Spider-Verse. I don't know if they're gonna like integrate that with like the Across the Spider-Verse like the animated Spider-Verse, who the fuck knows? But like there's such a vast multiverse aspect within Spider-Man's IP by itself that they could do that. And they know they have their own plans, like with Morbius, and I forget what that group was. It's not the Sinister Six. That's something else. Is it the Sinister Six? Something. There's like a villain group like that's like kind of like the Suicide Squad or something like that is in the Spider-Verse that could come around. So my guess, Sony's gonna take their IP back and they're gonna do their own thing. How successful that'll be, up for debate, because Morbius did bad. I liked Venom though. I don't know. It's kind of just hit and miss. It's hit and miss with them. So we'll see how they do. We got some new heroes, guys. So this is a fat spoiler alert. If you have not seen Thor: Love and Thunder, mute this girl right now because she is spoiling. We have a new hero named Love, who is the daughter of Gore. After Gore was died from his affliction of holding the Necro Sword, because you die from that, Gore's wish to eternity, which we're going to talk about eternity a little bit later, his wish to eternity was to bring his daughter back from the dead. And bringing his daughter Love back from the dead kind of gave her some of eternity's powers. She's a superhero now. We only saw a little bit of her, by the way. She was only in like the last like 2 or 3 minutes of the movie. I don't know where she comes in. Same thing. It's the same thing with Thor and Love. I don't know. Looking at the roadmap, I have no idea where they could come in. It's probably not going to be in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I think Thor has exited the Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know. I don't know where they're coming in, but I'm sure they are. I don't know. We got Shang-Chi. I actually haven't even seen this movie yet. It's really fucked up. I don't know. I have this movie and Black Widow. I have not seen either of those two movies. I now know I need to watch this one at minimum because there's some pretty major implications coming out of this film. I know a lot of the synopsis. The biggest being the 10 Rings coming out of that movie, being a new faction to contend with. I know they're coming back. They're actually going to get their own TV show. Shang-Chi is probably going to be a new Avenger. We saw, or I guess in the post-credit scene of Shang-Chi, you had Wong introducing Shang-Chi to Carol Danvers and Hulk, so that's a connection that was already made. So he's probably already inducted in the Avengers, but that was a new major hero. Moon Knight was a major addition, not even just alone being added to the MCU, but it opened up the Supernaturals faction of the MCU, the vampires, the werewolves, the deities. That's where Blade comes into, by the way. So like it's the Supernaturals. This is kind of how that opened up. Personally, I thought Moon Knight was ungodly boring. I felt so bad about it because I wanted to like it. There was a lot I liked about the show, but damn it, I thought it was so fucking boring. But I was very excited to see like Khonshu and the Egyptian gods. The oh, I forgot the word. The Ennead coming in. If you saw Thor: Love and Thunder, there were a lot of talks about gods there too. So that's a big faction that's probably coming as well. The gods, because I think the Ennead was actually even present in that movie. Another hero from this show, we got the Scarlet Scarab, who is Layla. Very exciting. I need to finish up this show because, like I said, it was really boring. I didn't actually even finish it, but it looks pretty badass, and I just need to like tough through it. She-Hulk, another new character. We don't know much about her. The show is starting like literally like next week, so this is exciting. No, next week, is it next week? It's either next week or the week after next. But there seems to be some pretty big implications on this edition as well. She's like related to the Hulk, a long lost cousin that was never mentioned until now. I don't know. That also just happens to have the same gamma affliction he does. I don't know. We'll see how they explain that one away. But this looks like a pretty exciting one too, especially some of the teases that came around in SDCC. We'll talk a little bit about that later. There were some new teases that came in phase 4. They didn't get into too many details about some of these, but like the Black Knight, who is portrayed by Kit Harington. I don't actually know too much about the Black Knight in Marvel lore, but it seemed pretty hype worthy, especially with the connection to Blade. At the end of Eternals, we heard Blade's voice, aka Mahershala Ali's voice. He's actually not appeared in any films yet, and we only know he's playing Blade because it was announced at SDCC a few years ago, I think in 2018. But it seems that the Supernaturals faction of MCU may be getting kicked off with Blade, and I'm sure that I'm kind of guessing that the Black Knight, Kit Harington, might actually show up in that film. I'm curious how they're going to spin it. I think they're going the supernatural route. I don't think they're going to frame vampires as mutants. I think they're going to be framed as supernaturals. But this is pretty exciting. Hercules, another character that got a surprise reveal in Thor: Love and Thunder, was in the post-credit scenes, where Zeus, who Thor thought he killed Zeus, but he didn't. He just pissed him off, and now Zeus is sicking his son Hercules on him. So that's all we got. We only saw our man Roy Kent here. It's not his actual name. I forgot his actual name, but I call him Roy Kent because he was in Ted Lasso, and he was awesome in that. But he's playing Hercules, and he looked all badass and beefy, and he was mad, and that's all we got. So I don't know. It's just a tease of what's to come. Charlie Cox's Daredevil. We already knew he was a part of the MCU because he had a cameo in No Way Home. A cameo I had no idea about when I watched it. So when I saw it cold, I let out the biggest "oh shit" in the entire theater. I was loud as fuck. Nobody else was freaking out. I'm like, how the fuck y'all ain't freaking out? Y'all didn't see the fucking Netflix Marvel shows. But yeah, Charlie Cox was announced to have his own upcoming show, but he's also going to be making small appearances in a couple of other shows, including the upcoming She-Hulk, which is coming out next month, as well as the upcoming Echo, which is a spinoff of Hawkeye. Echo was the deaf badass lady that was kind of kicking Kate Bishop's ass a little bit, and she's got her own show coming. So we're gonna see our man Matt Murdock, and yeah. Oh, other teases is U.S. Agent as well as the future Thunderbolts. So U.S. Agent was the most unlikable Chad dude in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that straight up murdered a dude on TV. He got a little bit pardoned for it, but like kind of shamed out of the spotlight. But this character, I forgot her name, but she's supposed to be kind of like, I think a talent peruser, like kind of like Amanda Waller in Suicide Squad, a peruser of talent of bad people. I think she's going to be the one that forms the Thunderbolts. She's played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I forgot her name. Is it Veronica or something that starts with a V? But yeah, pretty much that was the first time we saw her, and that was kind of a huge reveal too in itself, seeing who plays her, and her enlisting U.S. Agent. The Thunderbolts are going to have like some notable people like Baron Zemo, perhaps Yelena, who is Black Widow's sister, the Ghost character from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like we have all of the players are in play for Thunderbolts. So very exciting things. Fantastic Four was also teased in Multiverse of Madness. That said, don't get too excited, folks. I know, we all got so excited seeing John Krasinski as Dr. Reed Richards, but in all likelihood, he's probably not going to be returning. I think that was literally just fan service. But fear not. What that did do is it did solidify Fantastic Four as on its way into the MCU. And we know that the Fantastic Four movie is going to be in phase 6, not in phase 5. Unfortunately, it's going to be a while before we see them. That said, that doesn't mean we're not going to see some of these characters in phase 5. Rumor has it that the Thing, it might be in She-Hulk and might be a very non-small part of She-Hulk. That's a rumor that I saw. Take it for the grain of salt. We're gonna find out in a couple weeks when She-Hulk comes out. But it's all I'm saying is Fantastic Four are here. We may not need to wait till 2025 to see any of them. I'm just saying. And then, of course, the X-Men also teased in Multiverse of Madness. And this is not the only time that this has been teased. We also got a tease at the end of Miss Marvel when her friend, Bruno, told her that even though her powers were kind of genetic from her family, he revealed that she was a mutant. And, they said the mutant, so you can say, oh, Gozy, just because she says mutant doesn't mean she means those mutants. Oh, no, my kind sir, because Kevin Feige specifically told them in Miss Marvel to play the 1997 X-Men song. You notice it. There's a little twing. That little chord happens after he says mutants. So X-Men are in the MCU, guys. X-Men are in the MCU. Funny enough, a lot of people on the internet are actually super pissed about it because apparently Miss Marvel is supposed to be an Inhuman. She's not supposed to be a mutant canonically. I don't give a fuck. I don't know why they care. Like, oh my God, it's awesome. Just be happy that's happening, guys. Just be happy it's happening. Anyway, the X-Men are on their way. Unfortunately, I have bad news, folks. Unfortunately, Fox still has standing contracts with every single original actor in the Fox X-Men movies until 2025. That's Patrick Stewart. I don't think that's Hugh Jackman, but that's like, say, Sophie, oh geez, what's her last name? Jonas? Did she take Joe Jonas's name? Sophie? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Sansa Stark. Anyway, she's like pretty much all of those, James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, all of those actors still have standing contracts until 2025 for each of those characters. So Marvel cannot use any of those characters without bringing the original actor back. That was the only reason why they were able to use Patrick Stewart, use Professor X in Multiverse of Madness, because they asked Patrick Stewart back. Same with Deadpool 3. That's on its way as well. That's going to have Ryan Reynolds. That's the only reason why that's able to happen. So unfortunately, we are probably not going to see any X-Men in the MCU until 2025, until Phase 6. That sucks, but we can be patient. It's okay. New factions arising in Phase 4. The Atlanteans. If you've seen the new Wakanda Forever trailer, we got a very, very clear view into Atlantis and the Atlanteans, and Namor the Submariner finally making his premiere to the golden screen. No movies ever had Namor before. It's a very big deal. I want to say Namor was a member of the Illuminati in the comics. I very briefly read part of Civil War in the comics back when the Civil War movie happened. And it was very much open. It very much opened on like a forum with like Professor Xavier, Tony Stark, Namor, Black Panther, Reed Richards, Doctor Strange, all of them pretty much talking about the Accords, not the Geneva Accords, what are they called? The something Accords, the Accords that Civil War was about. So like Namor is a really big deal in him, and the faction of the Atlanteans are like big players in the comics. So I'm really curious to see where they come in. I think they're going to be pretty tied to Wakanda. Going forward, there's going to be a couple of Wakanda series coming out in the next phase. I think that got announced, or maybe those didn't get announced. But the idea is that I don't think they're going anywhere. The Eternals, another faction that we saw, actually, the Eternals, another faction we were introduced to. This movie, love it or hate it, the movie introduced a very important faction, set of factions into the MCU. Eternals, Thanos was half Eternal. You know that? He was half Titan, half Eternal. He has a half brother named Eros, who's also an Eternal, and he is played by Harry Styles, and he was in the post credit scene of the Eternals. Very big players because they're directly connected to the Celestials. That was also another really big reveal that we got, like a real look at the Celestials, in particular their immense size. A little Easter egg: if you watch Thor: Love and Thunder, we actually saw two Celestials in the I think it's called the City of Omnipotence. It's the God City. It's the city of the gods where they all had the big orgy. There were two Celestials there, so they're pretty much using this time to make all of these factions. They're sprinkling these factions in more and more so that you're seeing the Easter eggs. And the Eternals are no different. So love or hate that movie for what you will. I have my own reservations. But yeah, it was very memorable. The Ten Rings, Xialing and the Ten Rings. So Xialing is Shang-Chi's sister, and he is under the impression that she was going to disband the Ten Rings, but as we see in the post-credit scene, she didn't. So, and they're gonna get their own show later. So the Ten Rings are definitely gonna remain in play somehow. I'm pretty curious how they're gonna do that. There's just so much going on now. There's so many factions, so it's just like makes you wonder, like, how are they gonna come into play? The mutants as well. As I mentioned, Kamala is she's kind of the first MCU character to be officially a mutant. Excuse me. That's a big deal. I'm sure we're gonna see more and more of those. I'm sure, like, as we see more and more shows, I'm sure somebody in Wakanda Forever is gonna be a mutant. Maybe Namor will be, and then the internet can fucking blow up about that because everybody's got an opinion for some reason. The gods are another big thing that got really landed by Thor: Love and Thunder and Moon Knight. So that's going to be just a big faction that we're going to have to contend with. Like, if you saw Thor: Love and Thunder, there's a lot of gods. There were a lot of fucking gods. I even tried to look it up after because I was like, I was trying to like take note of all the different gods because I'm like, is there going to be like a God Wars? Like, you know, I don't know. I know there's like the Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars later. I'm like, do they come in? Do they care? I don't know. It's just a huge faction to introduce into the MCU. Eternity is another big concept that they added to the MCU. I only got introduced to eternity after watching Thor: Love and Thunder, and I looked up a little bit, and apparently every universe has an eternity. It's basically this omniscient being, all-powerful being that lives at the center of the universe. And if you can find them first, they'll give you a wish. And that's it. That's all we know. There's a lot of lore attached to it. I tried to read a little bit of it, but I kind of don't want to. I kind of want to see where the MCU takes the concept of eternity. They very notably did not say much about eternity. They showed eternity, which in the film was basically just a form that had like a galaxy inside it. It was really cool, just like what's pictured here. It looked just like that, and then not much else. It didn't say anything or anything. And then all we knew after is that some of eternity's power was inside of love. And maybe, for all we know, eternity is love. Maybe eternity turned into love, the little girl. I don't know. Who knows? We're going to find out. We have some new threats. That were introduced in phase 4, starting with Kang the Conqueror, which in SDCC last week, we kind of were confirmed Kang is going to be the big bad of the multiverse saga, basically. And we're going to see him early, too. We're going to see him in the first project of phase 5, which is Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. And he's going to be in the quantum realm. I think it's going to be a different variant of Kang than we saw in Loki. I think he's going to be the primary antagonist for that movie. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Quantumanium later, but it's very, very a big deal that Kang was introduced and kind of how he was introduced, how he's kind of just an integral part of the multiverse. The Celestials were also introduced. The biggest thing of them is like their immense size and their purpose. Like in the Eternals film, the Celestials pretty much don't give a fuck about life. They use life to create their own life. Like the idea is that there's a celestial living inside of Earth that was feeding off the energy of humans. And as soon as he was ready, he was going to bust out of the Earth and destroy the Earth and become a celestial. And the Eternals stopped that. So a lot of mystery still on these guys. I know that some of the Eternals got kidnapped by this dude, and Eros offered to get their friends back, but that's kind of all we know. It's a pretty big mystery. Like pretty much Phase 4 has just been setting up a lot of stuff, and it's pretty unclear where everything connects. Another character we got introduced, oh gosh, reintroduced to was Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, where the actor reprised his role from the Netflix Daredevil series, which he was extremely critically acclaimed for. He was very, very good in that role. I think that there was a little bit of criticism on his role in Hawkeye just because he kind of felt like a weaker version of himself. I don't think that's gonna stick. I think they're gonna let him be him. Yeah, I think we're gonna see him again. I'm curious if we're gonna see him again in She-Hulk, if we're gonna see Matt Murdock. Maybe not. I think we will see him again in Echo because he was connected to Echo, like the character Echo. He like lied to her saying that, or lied to her around the circumstances about around how her father was killed. So I'm sure he's going to be the primary antagonist in Echo, but I think he potentially could make an appearance in She-Hulk as well. And then finally, incursions. This is another threat that's new for the MCU. You know, that magic performed at a very reckless and grand scale can destroy a universe. And I think this is going to come back pretty intensely with Doctor Strange. Again, though, I don't know where that is. Looking at the Phase 5, I don't know where the fuck that fits in. So we'll see. All right. And so now let's talk about Phase 5, man. Let's talk a little bit about fucking Phase 5. We just talked about everything. That was a recap of everything that happened in Phase 4. What's next? We're starting with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, in SDCC, they got kind of an exclusive trailer, which I'm a piece of shit, so I looked up the leak of the trailer. And basically, at the beginning of the movie, Scott Lang is kind of like a fucking celebrity. We've actually seen little bits of this sprinkled throughout Phase 4. Kamala mentioned his podcast, and like we see like he published books and stuff, and how he's got like posters of interviews and stuff. So we see that Scott Lang has kind of capitalized on his fame as an Avenger and become kind of a celebrity. And as a result, he's becoming a little bit more estranged from his daughter, as well as his girlfriend, who's Hope Van Dyne. So they're basically tired of his shit, and they say, hey, let's go do an experiment, and they all get sucked into the quantum realm by accident, and that's where they're going to find Kang the Conqueror, as well as a new character played by Bill Murray named Krylar. I don't know a lot about that character, but feel free to look that up because I feel like it's probably pretty significant. But yeah, we were only introduced to a variant of Kang back in Loki, so this is probably going to set us up pretty intensely for the rest of the multiverse saga. Next show on the docket is Secret Invasion, which this is pretty much going to be just kind of a spy thriller series, like maybe circa Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's all centered around Nick Fury. Basically, this is another thing that we've been seeing sprinkled in over the last like phase or so. We keep seeing Skrulls pop up places, like we see characters that we know and love like Nick Fury and whatnot, and then they just get turned into Skrulls. There's effectively just an entire invasion of Skrulls replacing humans on Earth, and we don't really know the extent of that invasion right now. You know, for all we know, half of us are fucking Skrulls, just impersonating us. So that's what this show is going to follow. Basically Nick Fury dealing with the Skrull invasion. And a fun note on this, Rhodey, Don Cheadle's Rhodey is actually going to be in this one too. We saw Rhodey very briefly in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so I'm excited to see him. I know there was also supposed to be like a dedicated show for Rhodey called Armor Wars that is supposed to still happen, but that was also notably missing from the Phase 5 docket, so I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This is actually going to be the last entry in the Guardian saga. I don't know what that means. Does that mean that they're all going to split up and join other groups? Or is Peter Quill going to just like go retire with Gamora somehow? I don't know. But basically this film is following Peter Quill trying to win back Gamora, who remember this Gamora is not the same Gamora that he knows and loves. This is a Gamora from a different multiverse, a different universe, a different timeline. So he's trying to like win her back. But another part of this this plot is actually going to be actually a big part of this plot's actually going to be around Rocket Raccoon and his origin, how he was a baby raccoon, which I'm going to call it now that fucking Disney is going to capitalize the fuck out of the baby Rocket and do like a Grogu thing. He's going to be just like Grogu. I'm going to call that shit right now. But it's going to be a baby Rocket who was genetically engineered to be a fucking psycho killing machine. And another standout member addition to this cast is going to be Eyebrows guy Will Poulter, who is portraying Adam Warlock. Very interesting they're choosing now to introduce Adam Warlock to the MCU, because Adam Warlock actually is pretty intrinsically connected to Thanos and that whole storyline. So it's very interesting. I wonder how they're going to do it. He's apparently going to be the main antagonist for the film. We got a teaser for him at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, the post-credit scene where of Adam Warlock being created by the... Ooh, who were they created by? Oh, Jesus Christ. The High Evolutionary? I don't remember that shit. Honestly, I'm not really a fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Unpopular opinion, but I will watch it though. Echo, again, this is going to be a spin-off from Hawkeye following Echo. It's probably going to be following her parting ways with Kingpin. I know that Matt Murdock is also in this, so it makes me wonder if there's going to be some sort of crossover there. If like this is going to be Matt Murdock's like official introduction into the MCU and lead right into his series, and which makes me think that Echo might actually be around in his series too. We'll see. This comes out, I think, next spring sometime. Ooh, man, the Marvels. So we just watched Miss Marvel, and we saw at the end of Miss Marvel, Kamala was suddenly teleported somewhere else and switched places with Carol Danvers. This is presumably going to pick up right at that point. And wherever Carol Danvers was, I think Kamala is. Rumor has it that a good amount of this movie is going to be a musical. Don't let that scare you away. I think the reason for it is because the rumor is that about a third of the movie takes place on a planet where everybody communicates through singing. So I think that's the reason for that. And presumably that's where Kamala is. So I think what's going to happen is Monica Rambeau and Carol Danvers are going to use their awesome Marvel powers to go get Kamala. Loki season 2, not much known about this. The last we saw of Loki and his Lady Loki variant were that they blew up the multiverse, and that's kind of it. I don't even know where else Loki fits in the fucking phase. Like, all we know is like this is where he comes. Maybe this is where he comes back. Maybe he comes back somewhere else. I think the most likely place for him to come back outside of this is gonna be Ant-Man and the Wasp, the Quantumania, since that's where Kang's gonna be. But I don't know. That's my only guess for that. We don't know anything else about this. So very, very curious. I think this is next summer. Ironheart is going to be making her debut in the upcoming Wakanda Forever, which comes out in November. I think that's going to give us a solid introduction to the character. For those that don't know, Ironheart is effectively Iron Man's true successor. Look up a picture of Ironheart. She looks a lot like Iron Man. Building the suit, she's extremely smart. In fact, smarter than Iron Man. Iron Man, Tony Stark, like acknowledges that she's smarter than him. And yeah, she's gonna have her own fucking show. The speculation is that if there's gonna be a new Avengers team, which we know there will be, she might be helming the lead of that team. So that's gonna be pretty cool. Seeing a lot of black leads coming up in the MCU. This is pretty fucking rad. You love to see it. Agatha Coven of Chaos, which this was formerly called Agatha House of Harkness. I'm glad they changed the name because that was really shticky. But it's basically giving Agatha Harkness her own television series. For some reason, I don't know. I'm not gonna shit on it like the rest of the internet has, because I'm quite excited about the implications that magic have on the multiverse. So any other characters that could possibly connect to that, I'm all for. I see Agatha firmly in the camp of Wanda. This could even probably be how Wanda is reintroduced into the MCU, because it has been hinted multiple times that her end in Multiverse of Madness is not the end of Wanda Maximoff. So this could be her re-entrance. This could also be, this honestly could be where Doctor Strange comes back in. Like, I don't like, it makes sense. Like, this is the magic section of the MCU. So this is, I'm curious about it. I'm giving this one a pretty open mind. Daredevil Born Again is going to be the Daredevil series that is coming out, that is going to be starring Charlie Cox, as well as some folks coming back. Eldon Henson as Foggy. I really liked him as Foggy. And then Deborah Ann Woll is supposed to come back as Karen. I think she's not confirmed right now, but she's supposed to come back. It's really cool that they're really trying to stick with the casts of those Marvel shows from Netflix days. I also saw rumors that Jessica Jones, the actor that played Jessica Jones, might be coming back as well. So it's really cool. It would have been really easy for Disney and Marvel to totally retcon those shows, despite the fact that a lot of people really loved those shows. So it's really cool that they're, it's really cool that they're taking the effort to keep them relevant. So I'm really excited about this. This is going to be a longer one too. They said this first season is going to be 18 episodes. I don't even think the Netflix show was that long. I think the Netflix show was like 13 episodes. I'm like, what the fuck do you need 18 episodes for? I don't know. They better be 30-minute episodes, because if it was 18 1-hour episodes, count me out. Unpopular opinion, little tangent. I was not a fan of how long Stranger Things was. I thought that whole show could have been, like, 3 hours could have been cut off of that shit. Like, that whole season. I don't think just because something is longer doesn't mean that it's better. That's all I'm saying. So keep it snappy pappy. Alrighty, and then Captain America: New World Order is going to be our new Captain America's, Anthony Mackie's Captain America's official debut as the storied superhero. It's unclear who the big bads are going to be here. My guess is probably Thunderbolts, actually, given that Baron Zemo, you know who I'm talking about, him as well as U.S. Agent are directly connected. And actually, another historic member of the Thunderbolts is actually the Winter Soldier himself, Bucky Barnes. So I mean, that's three. I really imagine that Thunderbolts are going to probably be a big part of this movie, which is interesting because the next project is Thunderbolts. So that's very conveniently timed. I think that's how that's going to go. And that actually is going to round out Phase 5. So whatever that does is probably going to be pretty damn impactful on the universe as a whole. And that, folks, is Phase 4 and 5 of the MCU, and that is Throw It Back. Let's go ahead and end the show tonight with a little bit of anticipation, where the segment where I talk about what I'm most excited for in the next month, starting with Madison. This is a horror game that is a little bit reminiscent of PT, of the playable teaser for Silent Hills. This is actually already out, by the way. This came out last month and I forgot about it. So I'm going to try to stream this game this month because it looks super fucking scary and I love those things. Very excited for the finale of Better Call Saul. I am finally caught up on the show. This show is so fucking good. If you've never seen it, watch that shit. It is, if you've seen Breaking Bad and you haven't seen Better Call Saul, I'm gonna tell you now, I think Better Call Saul is better. I said it. Don't cancel me. I really do think that Better Call Saul is better. My mom actually hasn't even seen Breaking Bad, so I told her actually to watch Better Call Saul first because I feel like that's going to give her a lot more of a fulfilled experience watching Breaking Bad later, having all of that extra context on these characters. So very excited to see the end of Better Call Saul. Excited to see how it ends. And we may be doing a lightning episode of Did Y'all See That to celebrate it. Boop. A new show called Sandman. This is a new edgy Neil Gaiman superhero drama on Netflix. I don't know a lot about this show, and honestly, it looks a little too edgy for me, but everybody's talking about it on the internet, so maybe you need to watch the first episode. This comes out next Friday. I will give it one episode. If they don't hold me, then pass. I don't know. Neil Gaiman historically has not been my cup of tea. I tried watching the Bad Omens show and it wasn't for me personally. Not saying it was objectively bad. It just was not my cup of tea. And I kind of foresee this one being the same way, but I'll give it a shot. The next one is Bullet Train. This is Brad Pitt's new movie. I've seen this trailer. These trailers come up multiple times, and this movie looks like a lot of fun. It basically looks like an action movie that takes place on a bullet train, and that's the premise. And it just looks like a good ass time with Brad Pitt being Brad Pitt, and I'm fucking watching it. And it comes out August 5th as well. I may go to the. I don't know. I may not go to the theaters for this. No, I probably will. I'll probably go to the theaters for that. She-Hulk, which is, oh, damn it, this one comes out August 17th. I thought this came out next month. Shit. So this is actually coming out in like 3 or 4 weeks. So there's going to be plenty more speculation coming out for She-Hulk between now and then. But I'm very excited to watch it. Some of the bombshell, I kind of didn't think that this show would be in the scope that it is. I think this show is going to make a lot of connections on those street level heroes that I was mentioning before. So I think this is going to be pretty influential for the realm of Daredevil, Echo, Hawkeye, like that whole segment of the MCU. So I'm going to be paying attention to this, especially in like the little leaks that come out in the next few weeks, and see exactly where this is going. Ooh, Destiny 2 Season 18 is coming out. It's dropping on August 23rd. Very excited for this because they're bringing back one of the big raids from Destiny 1. I'm so fucking stoked. Whichever one they bring back, if it's Kingsfall or Wrath of the Machine, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to play it 100 times. Another movie that's coming out is Barbarian. This is like a scary movie where you see, this is actually, I think, made by the same people that made It, which is interesting because they got this guy, Skarsgård guy back. So not surprising, I guess. But it's basically, there's an Airbnb that is apparently double booked. And this girl shows up. She's just like, what the hell are you doing here? This is my Airbnb. And he's just like, what? This is my Airbnb. So they both stay there. And then they find out that there's like a mysterious cellar and a mysterious door that leads to a mysterious tunnel. And then there's horrific shit that's happening down there. And the trailer looked really good. And I'm going to go watch this movie. It looks really good. It comes on August 31st. And then the last one is Pray for the Devil. This is another horror movie that I saw. It was another trailer I saw when I went to the movies this weekend. This actually doesn't come out until Halloween, but it looked super fucking scary, and I really wanted to see it. It's about basically this nun that had her mom when she was young. Her mom was possessed by a demon, and she becomes a nun and goes to like an exorcism school to try to like learn how to protect herself from demons. And she finds out that the same demon that possessed and killed her mom is possessing a little girl, and she's just like, "Oh man, teach me how to exorcise people." And they're like, "No, you're a woman, I can't do that." And then they're like, okay, maybe because you know that demon well. I don't know. It looked really good. The scares looked really tight, and I'm gonna watch this fucking movie. And that, folks, is the end of the segment. Thank you, folks, so much for watching the show tonight. It was an extra long, extra special San Diego Comic-Con extra special edition of Did Y'all See That? This episode will be going out on all platforms on Friday morning at 10 a.m. I hope you all enjoyed the show, and I hope to see y'all next time. All right, y'all. Bye.